Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto and Hinata are sent back in time using an untested jutsu. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. 10 years. It was hard for him to believe, but it had truly been a decade since the Fourth Shinobi World War had begun. The man leaned back against the trunk of a tree, lost in his memories as he watched the sunset. He was a tall, athletically built young man with long, spiky, blonde hair that framed his face, falling past the whisker-shaped marks on his cheeks. His attire consisted of a simple dark green shirt, dark blue trousers, and a pair of black sandals. His allied shinobi forces Hitite was worn over his forehead and across the left eye that even the regenerative powers of the Kyuubi were unable to replace after it had been gouged out during one of the more recent battles of the war, though his healing abilities had saved him from carrying any scars. It was a habit, he supposed, that he'd copied from his late teacher. Although he'd long since stopped wearing his leaf Hitite out of respect for what the Shinobi Alliance had symbolized, he always carried it with him as a reminder of those who had first believed in him, and of his love for a home that he had not seen in years. Over the rest of his attire, he wore a black haori with stylized orange flames across the bottom hem. A swirling whirlpool-like design was emblazoned in red across the back as homage to his maternal clan. Partially concealed beneath his cloak, strapped to his waist, was a pair of combat knives. They were masterfully crafted, among some of Tenten's finest creations. The black hilts had been made with practicality in mind as they were able to be held comfortably in either a normal or reversed hand grip. The blades themselves had wickedly sharp edges concealed within jet black scabbards, each of which was decorated with a detailed image of a fox hidden behind leaves. The material that made up the knives was specially treated to be stronger, more durable, and able to channel chakra. The twin knives were the perfect tools to complement his destructive wind affinity and preference for close-quarters combat. If only I had been stronger, thought Uzumaki Naruto, as he let out a deep sigh. None of this would have had to happen. The war, it had gone badly. Naruto and Killer Bee had entered the war against the wishes of the five Kages, turning the tide on multiple fronts of the battlefield. But momentum shifted against them and they were forced into a stalemate once they had come up against the masked man known as Uchiha Madara and the seven-tailed beasts that he had already enslaved to his will. The pair had waged a desperate battle, but just when Naruto appeared to be gaining the upper hand by beginning to free the tailed beast and gain the Kyuubi's trust, Madara played his trump card and revived the Jubi, the 10-tailed beast, using only a fragment of the chakra from Gyuki and Kurama, along with the other 7. He then proceeded to immediately subjugate it, becoming its Jinchuriki. By the time anyone else from the army had arrived, Naruto and Killer Bee had already been defeated effortlessly, so outclassed that they hadn't even been able to put a scratch on the strange mask Madara always wore. The combined might of the allied shinobi forces had simply been blown away after Madara had become a Jinchuriki. In the end, the entire army had been forced to retreat from a single man. Everyone knew that someone would have to stay behind to hold Madara off long enough for the others to get away with the unconscious Naruto and Bee. In the end, it had been the 5 Kage who had stayed behind. Although they were soundly defeated, they had given their lives to buy enough time for the rest of their forces to escape. The only consolation was that Madara had, for some reason, been unable to enact his plan and cast a genjutsu upon the moon. Shikamaru had surmised that, barring the possibilities that he had either been lying the entire time or had simply switched plans, his inability to cast the genjutsu was due to the fact that the Jubi was still incomplete without the full power of the Hachibi and Kyuubi. From the intensity with which Madara still pursued the last 2 Jinchuriki to this day, it seemed that this was at least part of the explanation. Naruto had secretly wished that he could simply kill himself to end such a large threat to the world, despite how he knew it would make his friends feel. However, since Kurama would simply be reborn somewhere else where he would be much easier to find and capture, Naruto had to fight back by evading capture and striking back whenever he could. The years had not been kind to the allied forces. What had once been a powerful army of 80,000 warriors had been decimated to fewer than 2,000 in the years following Madara's ascension. Over the years, they'd suffered defeat after crushing defeat, constantly having to fall back and regroup. Constantly having to leave their brethren dead or dying on the battlefield. Constantly having to watch towns and villages burn to ash. Even though the allies were still united in their cause, that unity only amounted to so much. For while their army had been weakened, diminished and demoralized over the last decade, Madara's forces only seemed to grow stronger. Despite the loss of Kabuto, who the allies later learned had been defeated by Sasuke and a reincarnated Itachi, and nearly all of the White Setsu, Madara still had a massive and powerful army to be reckoned with. He continued to produce White Setsu through some unknown means, although never on the same scale as the beginning of the war. Furthermore, he had even managed to recruit ninja from some of the smaller hidden villages that were too terrified to resist him after his victory over the 5 great villages that composed the allied forces. The allies had tried their best to keep going. They rebuilt their shattered chain of command, Naruto himself eventually rising to become the field commander of what was left of their army. The alliance harried Madara's forces, constantly staying mobile, while they engaged in guerrilla tactics and sabotage to damage the villages and territories under his control. Unfortunately, this simply wasn't enough, and the allies continued to lose more ninja as time wore on. These losses were what hurt Naruto the most. He had spent his entire life trying to be recognized and accepted by those around him. He had believed that if he pushed himself enough, believed in himself enough, he could achieve his dreams and protect those precious to him. The losses of Kakashi, Iruka, Sakura, and so many others to the war had taught him otherwise. At this point, even though he would never admit it, he was starting to wonder if he would even be able to save any of those who were still left. And now, with Madara finally managing to find our base, Naruto reflected wearily, it looks like the rest of US may have finally run out of time. I suppose we should be thankful that it's taken him this long. After their disastrous defeat at the beginning of the war, they needed a refuge from which to organize their resistance efforts, as well as a place large enough to protect the civilians that had been evacuated before Madara destroyed the 5 great ninja villages. They'd decided on using Mount Maiboku, the home of the ninja toads, as their main base. Overall, the sanctuary had served its purpose well, becoming the only true safe haven for the alliance. They'd had other bases in the beginning, of course, and some had even managed to remain undetected for years, but now this mountain was all that was left. The only reason Maiboku had survived as long as it had was due to the fact that it was so well hidden and at least a few weeks' travel from any human settlements unless there was a toad summoner to facilitate travel. But even the best of secrets can only be kept for so long, and Madara had finally managed to track down their location. It had taken his forces the better part of a year to navigate the uncharted lands around the mountain once they had found the Allies' approximate location. Now, however, the enemy army was finally closing in, a few days away at most. The Allies could try to run, and some would most certainly get away, but there was simply nowhere left to hide. I wish we had more of a plan than what that old toad Fukasaku has cooked up. It's crazy and reckless, even for me, he mused. Shikamaru says that it may be the only choice we have left though. I wish you were still here, Father, Jiraiya-sensei. You'd both know what to do, wouldn't you? Despite the hopelessness and adversity of the situation, he knew, deep down, that he would not give up. He couldn't give up. There was still something worth fighting for. As if on cue, Naruto sensed a presence to his right and smiled. Well, at least there's still one good thing left in this world, he thought as he turned towards his wife. Hey, Hinata, Naruto said, mood brightening, what brings you here? Like Naruto, Uzumaki Hinata had changed in appearance over the past 10 years. She also had an athletic build, though she was not as muscular as her husband. Her long dark blue hair fell gracefully past her shoulders, but her piercing white eyes, once so innocent, were now a little sad. She wore a light purple jacket, similar to the one she wore in her younger years, as well as dark blue pants and sandals. Hinata gave a small, tired smile as she walked over to stand beside him, laying her head on his shoulder as he put a comforting arm around her. I thought we could both use some company, she said in her usual soft tone, looking sadly to where his left eye was covered by his Hittite. It's been a hard few weeks for both of us. The years had caused a noticeable change in Hinata's personality as well. Although she was still soft-spoken, she now radiated an air of quiet confidence and strength that was in stark contrast to the innocent shyness she once possessed. In fact, though few would guess by looking at her, she had authority equal to her husband's as the commander of reconnaissance, infiltration and special operations for the Allied forces. The war had left few unscathed, however, and like Naruto, there was always a touch of melancholy to her. Recently, though, she had become noticeably more downcast than before. It was little surprise, considering that she was now the last of the Hyuga clan. A gentle wind swirled through the tall canopy of trees above them, rustling the leaves. Naruto closed his eyes. As he leaned back once again, I was just taking some time to think, he admitted. But you know I can always use your company, he added teasingly. They stood there for a while, simply enjoying each other's company. Suddenly Naruto's sky-blue eye turned red and his face grew feral. While this is nauseatingly cute, don't we have a meeting to go to? A new voice barked from Naruto. Hello, Kurama, Hinata said as she lifted her head, rolling her eyes, as polite as always I see. Naruto's features curved to form an eerie grin. I am being polite. I haven't killed you yet, have I now? Kurama chuckled before Naruto's features faded back to normal. I hate it when he does that without asking, Naruto said with a twinge of annoyance. I think that's why he does it, she responded, sighing. Even though I'd love to stay here for the rest of the evening, he does have a point. Besides, he sort of ruined the moment. Naruto nodded. You'd think that becoming friends with us would have improved his attitude a bit more. Not in your dreams, runt, A voice rumbled within his mind, "Now hurry up." "Stupid fox," Naruto muttered. Then, raising his voice, he said more loudly, "Let's go, Hinata." She nodded and they started off to meet with the others. As the couple walked in silence along the path, they maintained a slow and measured pace, the soft grass crunching underfoot. "So," Hinata began slowly as they neared the building in which they were to meet with the others, "are you still opposed to Shikamaru's recommendation? You know he's going to push it on us again, especially since this will be the last chance we will have to discuss the plan before we commit to it." Naruto gave a curt nod. "Of course. You." Hinata hesitated. "You know how I feel. It's not that I'm against the plan itself, it's just the cost is so high, and we aren't even sure if it will work." She trailed off. "But it's not like I like your solution any more than his." "I know, Hinata. God knows I wouldn't like this plan if our places were switched." Hinata looked away, hiding the look of helplessness in her eyes. Naruto could sympathize. Time and again, the blonde-haired ninja had pulled off the impossible. He had become a legend because of it. But time travel? At best, the idea was a desperate, far-fetched hope, even for him. It wasn't that he didn't think it wasn't worth trying, however. In fact, both he and Hinata agreed that it might be their last and only real hope, despite the seemingly impossible odds. It was only by luck 2 weeks ago that Fukasaku had uncovered a withered, dust-covered scroll lost deep within the Toad's library that detailed how to perform the complex time travel technique. The problem was that the ancient jutsu that he had found required an immense amount of chakra. An entire tailed beast's store of chakra, to be exact. This meant that giving the amount of chakra necessary to power the jutsu would be draining to the point that doing so would kill the tailed beast's Jinchuriki host. Even then, there would only be enough energy to send back 2 people at most, with little more than the clothes on their back, and that was only if it even worked in the first place. This chakra cost was the reason why it had never been successfully used. This, in and of itself, wasn't a problem. Naruto was more than willing to make such a sacrifice for even the slightest chance of setting the world right. No, the problem was that Shikamaru had suggested sending Hinata and him back, saying that their strength, skills, and abilities, especially when working together, would offer the best probability of success. But if he agreed with Shikamaru, then the sacrifice would have to fall to Killer B, and that was something he could not bring himself to allow. Unfortunately for Naruto, neither B nor Gyuki, the Hachibi, seemed to share this sentiment. Although Hinata was not as close to B as Naruto, she also disliked the idea of their friend having to sacrifice himself to send the couple back in time. Unlike Naruto, however, she was also vehemently against the idea of her husband making the sacrifice. Still, she knew the sobering and inescapable truth: regardless of her feelings, one life had to be forfeit to power the time travel technique. Naruto knew that she was simply too compassionate, too kind, to advocate that either her friend or her love die for the sake of the other. No, Naruto thought, there's no way I could ever agree if it was Hinata who had to be sacrificed. Still, you should know why this is necessary, why I have to be the one do this. I have to make up for my mistakes. No one else can die for me. No! She snapped, frustration and sadness flaring in equal measures. I know why a sacrifice is necessary. But if I have to watch you die right in front of me, it will not be because of your misplaced sense of guilt. Her voice lowered to a whisper. Our friend's deaths weren't your fault. Her death wasn't your fault. I don't blame you, and neither did she. If you'd only open your eyes, both of your eyes, you'd see that you have nothing to atone for. Naruto's shoulders sagged. You're right, Hinata, I know that it's not really my fault, and believe me, I don't want to die. Not yet. It's just that sometimes I just wish I could have saved them. And this, he paused, this may actually be a real second chance to set things right. And I'd pay any price for that. I just want it to be me who pays that price and not another of my friends. I know, she said, I just need you to remember that you have nothing to atone for. We both know who's to blame for this. It was a conversation they'd had several times before, each having been at one time or another the one trying to console the other. Each trying to lighten the other's burden when the deaths of so many friends and loved ones over the years weighed too heavily on their mind. They finally reached the wood and stone meeting building and paused outside of it. Naruto gave her a small smile. What would I possibly do without you? He thought to himself. I'll remember, Hinata, for your sake. As they turned to walk inside, Naruto slowly lifted his hitite, revealing a wide eye exactly like his wife's. So quietly that he could just barely hear, he heard his wife whisper her sister's name. Hinata followed Naruto towards the meeting room, barely paying attention to anything other than her own chaotic thoughts. Despite the front she tried to put up for her husband, she was on the verge of breaking down. She had always known that it was possible for either of them to die any time, especially during the war, but it had always seemed a distant worry somehow. Now, however, her worst fear was staring her right in the face, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could handle it. Her sister's death a month ago had already shaken her to the core, and if she lost Naruto, she would fall apart. She simply wouldn't be able to survive losing him too. Hinata knew that she was the only person who might be able to talk Naruto out of what he was trying to do, but, as much as she hated this situation, she couldn't bring herself to persuade him to change his mind. That was the worst part of all for her, the knowledge that she may be able to prevent his death, but that she wouldn't because she simply couldn't bring herself to be selfish enough to stop him from trying to save one of his closest friends. And now, she knew she may have to pay the price. "You're late," a bored voice drawled as they walked into the room, bringing her back to the present. Naruto Shikamaru, the chief strategist of what remained of their army, sat at a large table consisting of Fukasaku and the 2 other members of the allied forces privy to their insane plan. "We're very sorry, Shikamaru-kun," Hinata said with a bow while Naruto stood looking slightly embarrassed. Physically, the strategist had changed little over the 10 years, though he looked much more like his father than before. However, mentally, he had grown a great deal, coming into his own as a leader with authority equal to both Naruto and Hinata's. "It's fine," Shikamaru sighed as the latecomers took their seats. "We were just continuing the same discussion as before. Basically, we've agreed again that we should send you 2 back, even though the Dobe won't stop complaining about it," Sasuke said nonchalantly as he turned his closed eyes to the pair. Uchiha Sasuke had, for better or worse, decided to defect from Madara's side, for reasons he still wouldn't confess, during the beginnings of the war. Though she had not trusted him at first, and probably never would be able to fully trust him again considering the amount of times he had tried to kill Naruto, Hinata had to admit that Sasuke had, if nothing else, proven himself a great asset to their cause. Defeating Kabuto and neutralizing his reincarnated army had most likely saved them from being utterly destroyed within months of their initial disastrous defeat. Further, he had been the one to bring Naruto and Bee to safety after they had been defeated by Madara. He had been forced to use his Izanagi twice, sacrificing both of his eyes, to keep the 2 protected from Madara's initial attacks long enough for the Kages to begin to repulse him. Even without his treasured eyes, however, he was still a formidable fighter and still continued to take on various missions. "Not the words I would have used, but the boy is right," croaked the elder toad, Fukasaku. "Besides, Naruto boy, you must remember that you are the child of destiny, and I believe the prophecy has not yet come to pass. You must not let your emotions cloud your view of the greater picture." "Stop being a fool, it's not cool, Naruto," Killer Bee rapped. Of the 5 ninja present in the room, Bee had seemingly changed the least over the years. He was, in many ways, still the same boisterous, muscular and accomplished warrior with the aggravating hobby of creating bad rap lyrics. Still, to those who knew him well, like her husband, there were times when his personality would shift slightly and one could get a brief glimpse of his all-consuming anger and desire to bring the man who slaughtered his brother and students to justice. "No," Naruto stated simply, already exasperated after a week of having the same debate. "I've already told you hundreds of times that I will not agree to this. Isn't it enough that I have to abandon our army right before our last stand, because this is our only real hope left? Do you really expect me to let someone else die for me too? And B," Naruto added with frustration, "how can you treat your own death so casually? This isn't something to rap about. It isn't a joke." "I can treat my death casually for the same reason you can, Naruto," B said with an uncharacteristically quiet voice, "because, like you, I would do anything for a chance to save all the friends I've lost." "Besides," Sasuke interjected, "if this really does somehow manage to work, B won't actually die. Or at least the past version of him won't." "Then why can't you let me be the one to take that risk?" Naruto asked. "Calm down, Naruto, this is our last meeting and we don't have the time for this fight anymore," Shikamaru said tiredly. "I've already explained this to you. This decision isn't about who lives and who dies or even about our army anymore. You have to understand that time travel is very troublesome. I can only make basic, short-term plans of what to do for whoever goes back. There are simply too many effects the slightest action could have on history for me to account for all the variables." He paused for a moment. "You two are among the strongest ninja we have, especially when working together. Honestly, with your ability to turn impossible situations into victories and with Hinata there to help you and to keep you from doing anything stupid, I think you two are the last, best chance we have. The war is lost. We're due to be attacked any day now. All that's left is to make our last stand. You know that if I didn't think this was our only real chance, I wouldn't suggest we send 2 of our best commanders away right when we needed them the most." Naruto was silent for a moment. "I'm sorry, Shikamaru, I just can't," he whispered. "And you, Kurama," he said, still looking at Naruto, "do you have anything to add?" Naruto gave a wild grin. While I'd rather not deal with the inconvenience the pup's death would cause, I'd never hear the end of it if I stopped him. Besides, I can't leave this to Gyuki, he said with amusement. Who knows if that weakling even has enough chakra to power the jutsu without 9 tails? Shikamaru sighed. Hinata? What about you? You haven't spoken at all yet. Hinata looked down. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading. Her last chance to try and save her husband's life. Forgive me, she thought as she raised her head, barely holding back tears. I see your point, Shikamaru-kun, and you may even be right, but she hesitated. In this, I cannot side with you, she finally whispered. There was a pause for a moment, as the finality of their decision weighed on those present within the room. I suppose I never really did expect you to agree, Shikamaru said with uncharacteristic sadness, as he folded his hands in his lap. You both always did put others before yourselves, especially your friends. Maybe that's why I think you'll do so well. Suddenly, Naruto and Hinata froze, unable to move. Hinata's eyes widened with realization. Shikamaru and the others already made their decision, she thought frantically. They weren't planning on letting Naruto actually go through with being the power source for the jutsu. This was just a last attempt to get us to agree willingly. Shadow possession complete, Shikamaru said smoothly, raising his hands back into view. Shit. Naruto thought, his teeth gritted, desperately trying to regain control. Damn it, Shikamaru, what the hell do you think you're doing? Naruto roared. Making the right choice, Shikamaru said simply, as he walked away from the table, Naruto and Hinata unwillingly mirroring his movements. Naruto's body flared with yellow energy as his chakra cloak formed around him. Before Naruto could attempt to break free, however, Fukasaku quickly flashed through some hand signs. Doton, swamp of the underworld, the old toad stated quietly, sinking Naruto and Hinata into the floor. Killer Bee then sprouted several octopus tentacles, wrapping them around the two and trapping them even further, while Sasuke simply stood by, ready to act if they made even the least bit of headway in freeing themselves. Naruto looked over and saw that Hinata was having as much trouble trying to get out as he was. Have all of you gone crazy? Naruto shouted, still trying to break free. No, Sasuke stated calmly, we're just making sure that we take best chance we have to prevent this nightmare. Fukasaku quickly began placing seals around the floor in a complicated design. I'm sorry it's come to this, Naruto boy, but we can't afford to let you have your way, he said with a hint of regret as he began a complicated series of hand signs. Not this time. Bee began to glow, and then purple chakra shot from him and began to swirl around Hinata and Naruto. Shikamaru and Bee released their hold on the pair, but they were still trapped within jutsu Fukasaku was performing. Shikamaru-kun, Hinata said softly, as she ceased her now pointless struggling to look into his eyes. To force us to be the ones to do this, to save our lives instead of another's, do you really believe in us that much? I do, Shikamaru responded, without hesitation. For what it's worth, I'm sorry we had to take this choice out of your hands. I hate to say it, pup, but I think we may be taking this trip after all, Kurama growled in Naruto's mind. Naruto released his chakra cloak and slumped, defeated. He had been prepared to make one last sacrifice to save one of his friends, and here he was, forced to let one of them die instead. I may be blind, but I still know that look on your face, though, Sasuke said. This is not you failing to save a friend, this is your friends forcing you to be smart for once. Anyway, he added, like I've already said, if this works out then none of us have to die. Naruto looked towards Sasuke. I don't agree with this, Sasuke, but I understand. Bee glowed brighter and brighter, flaring like a miniature sun. The amount of chakra being released was incredible. I'm getting close to the end of the jutsu. If you have any last pieces of advice, now's the time, Fukasaku announced gruffly. First, I have warning for you three. I am not certain exactly what state you will be in when you return to the past. However, based upon my research, I believe that you will most likely be separate entities from your past selves with all of your abilities intact, except, perhaps for your summoning contracts, which you may have to reobtain. As for the QB, he will most likely survive the ordeal, though beyond that, I cannot predict what effects this jutsu will have upon a tailed beast since it was never designed with one in mind. Lastly, be careful. There's no telling how difficult a trip through time might be. As for my advice, all I have to say is this. Remember the prophecy, Naruto, remember that you can still change this world for the better. Shikamaru stepped forward resolutely. There's little I can suggest for you to do, Shikamaru began. Like I said, this situation is troublesome. Fukasaku is sending you back to a bit before the Chunin exams, since that was when things began to fall apart. You should start by talking to the third and asking him for help. Remember that since we never did see Madara try to perform that ridiculous genjutsu, we still don't know if that really was his ultimate goal, or if he was just lying and had something completely different up his sleeve, but it doesn't really matter. Either way, the keys to his plan are the 9 Jinchuriki, including Naruto. If you can find a way to protect them from Madara, you should be able to stop his plans. Naruto and Hinata nodded in acknowledgement, each with a look of determination on their face. Sasuke turned his sightless gaze towards Naruto, and for a moment, he felt like he could once again see his rival's piercing red eyes. It was not in Sasuke's nature to ask for help, but Naruto understood. He would do his best to stop Sasuke from making the same mistakes again. He wouldn't let him run off to Orochimaru or kill his brother. If I can, I will, Naruto said solemnly. Sasuke nodded, thank you. Naruto turned his head towards B. The muscular ninja was floating 10 meters off the ground, surrounded by a nearly blinding corona of purple light. Naruto could see that he was beginning to pale and weaken. B, I'm sorry, he whispered guiltily. D, don't be whack. Just make it be back. Killer B rapped, his voice hoarse and cracking with effort. And be sure you two kill that B bastard and save the cloud for Emmy and Hachibi. Don't doubt it, Naruto said with a slight grin. B's grin deepened as the light faded from his eyes and his face went slack. Shikamaru caught his body as it fell towards the ground. As if on cue, the last of the chakra drained from B's body and came to surround them. The chakra began to swirl faster and faster, until Naruto was unable to make out anything beyond the powerful torrent of energy. Naruto grasped Hinata's hand and looked towards her. As he looked deep into her eyes, he knew they were thinking the same thing. They may not have chosen this path, but they would not fail and they would never give up. After all, now they had everything to fight for. The torrent of chakra began to rage and howl, louder and louder, until suddenly the sound ceased and everything faded to black. What a weird dream, Hinata thought blearily as she began to regain consciousness. She stretched out in the grass, trying to wake herself up. Grass? That's odd. She slowly opened her eyes and what she saw jolted her back to full awareness. Rather than the bedroom she'd been expecting, she was in the middle of a dense forest. Wait, the jutsu, she thought, scrambling to her feet as her most recent memory surged to the forefront of her mind. Did it work? It definitely did something. Just then, she noticed Naruto beside her, still asleep. She knelt next to him and tried to wake him. Naruto? Naruto! Wake up! She insisted as she shook him. HRM Hinata? What is it? He asked groggily. I think it may have worked. Huh? What were? He stopped mid-sentence as his eyes shot open. Where are we? Are we back? He demanded, jumping to his feet. I'm not sure yet, but if it did actually work we should be somewhere near Konoha. She gazed up at the blue sky overhead. Let's check, she said. She quickly stood up and began to jump to the tops of the trees, Naruto close behind her. Please be here, please be here, please be here, thought Hinata desperately. She burst through the canopy and began to look around for her former home. Hinata froze. I can't believe it, Naruto whispered as he came up beside her. There in the distance, no more than a few kilometers away, was the Hidden Leaf Village, completely intact. The monument, she whispered, as her eyes began to water. Tsunade-sama's face isn't there. It worked, Naruto exclaimed, pulling her into a hug. Thank God it worked, he choked. Hinata was at a loss for words. She had hoped that their plan would succeed, but until now, she honestly thought it was little more than a desperate fantasy. We can save them, she sobbed, gripping her husband. Our home, our friends, we can save them, we can change things this time. They stayed that way for a few minutes, too stunned to do more than hold on to each other and pray that it wasn't all just a dream. Hinata wiped her eyes, smiling as they pulled apart, truly hopeful for the first time in years. Let's get down from here, the last thing we need is to get spotted now. Good idea, Naruto nodded. They jumped down from the treetops and settled into the shadow of a large oak. So, Hinata began, what now? Naruto leaned against the tree and thought. I think we should follow Shikamaru's suggestion, he said. We need to find at least one other person to help us, and the old man's probably our best bet. Agreed, but still, there's the matter of getting into the village itself. She paused. We could probably sneak past the patrols closer to the village and at the gate, but I'm not sure about reaching the Hokage himself. He's sure to have at least a few guards besides the ones we saw, and they're bound to be far from incompetent. While I'm sure we could incapacitate them, I doubt that acting like assassins would do much to help us make our case. You're right. We need to find a way to get a private audience somehow. We also need to figure out exactly when we were sent to. We may be back in the past, but that's no guarantee that we're exactly where Fukasaku aimed to send us. That's a good point too, she hesitated. The biggest problem, though, is our appearance. I doubt anyone would be able to connect us to our past selves. It's just too unrealistic to be believable, even if it is the truth. Still, you look too much like your father, and I look too much like a Hyuga for us to be able to simply ignore it. Most importantly, our eyes, Naruto. We have to hide our eyes. If my father even suspected that the Hyuga's Byakugan had been obtained by anyone outside the clan, he would be furious. And as far as he knows, we're both outside of the clan. Why does everything have to be so difficult? He sighed. At least my mother's clan isn't in Konoha to complicate things as well. Naruto paused. Wait, that's it. Hinata looked at him quizzically. What do you mean? My mother's clan, the Uzumaki, they were one of the most prominent clans of Uzushiogaku in the land of whirlpools. The village was destroyed in the Third Shinobi World War, but the village, especially the Uzumaki, had always had close ties to Konoha. If we say that we were survivors from the village that have come to join the Leaf, it should be enough of an excuse to at least get to see the old man. It would also explain why two, unknown, highly trained ninja would suddenly want to join the Leaf instead of another village. That's perfect actually, Hinata smiled. I hadn't considered that type of approach, though we will have to be careful when anyone asks what we did during the time between the village's destruction and now. Also, only you should be a hereditary member of the clan. Even though it doesn't affect what we're trying to do, I'd rather our story include the fact that we're married instead of siblings or relatives. She sighed. Still, there's the matter of actually disguising our appearance. A simple transformation would be too unreliable. Actually, I have a solution to that problem as well, Naruto explained with pride. You don't mean you actually managed to create that seal? Naruto chuckled, pushing himself off of the tree trunk. I finished it a few weeks ago, but we were so busy with this mess that I never had a chance to tell you. Are you really that surprised? You were the one who asked me to create it for your infiltration teams after all. Hinata laughed. Fair enough. Regardless, it's impressive, especially considering you never had much formal training in Fuinjutsu in the first place. How effective is it? Naruto shrugged. Effective enough, I'd say it's pretty much on par with whatever it was that Granny Tsunade did. As far as I know, it's virtually undetectable, will stay active even without conscious effort, and will still work while we're asleep. There are three main problems though. First, it will constantly feed of your chakra to keep active. Not that much, at least, not for ninja of our level, but it would still be a disadvantage in battle. Also, that means that if you don't have enough energy to sustain it, the transformation will fade. Second, you're limited to only one appearance, so you'd have to remove and reapply the seal to change how you look. Last, the seal will still be visible even during the transformation, though since I invented it, no one will know what its purpose is. He paused. Also, there's one more thing. It wouldn't normally be too much of an issue, but the actual creation of the seal is draining, so it'd be dangerous to do in the field. I see, Hinata said, nodding. Still, even with those drawbacks, that seal should be more than enough. She thought for a moment, recognizing a potential problem. We do have to test it though. If I can see through it with my Byakugan, it may make things more difficult. Naruto nodded. You're right. I guess I didn't have to take the Byakugan into account while I was working on it since your entire clan fought with us. Let's test it before we go any further then. He took a deep breath before beginning a series of hand seals. After about a minute, he finished and his right hand began to glow. Metamorphosis, he whispered as he pressed his hand into his left shoulder. An elaborate circular design began to form, spiraling out from where his palm met his shoulder. The shape shined brightly just as it was completed. After the light faded, it looked like nothing more significant than an intricate tattoo. Here we go, said Naruto, grinning at her. There was an explosion of smoke, but it was much larger and more powerful than the one that accompanied a normal transformation. When the smoke cleared, a new man was in the place of her husband, still wearing the same grin Naruto had seconds earlier. While his clothing was the same, his physical appearance was completely different. The whisker marks that were on his cheeks were now non-existent. His face was slightly different structurally, and was a bit more angular, and had more softness to it than Naruto had originally had. The most apparent change, however, was his hair. He had straight crimson hair that hung down to his shoulders, a bit of it framing the right side of his face. The only thing consistent with his original appearance, she noticed, were the striking blue eyes that always reminded her of a clear summer day, though now he had two instead of one. Naruto brushed a few strands of his new hair out of his eyes. So? What do you think? he asked in a voice that she'd never heard before. Well, she smirked, you look handsome. Not as good as the original, of course, but I think I can learn to live with it. Naruto laughed, though the sound had an edge of fatigue to it. I'm glad you approve. Can you take a look? Of course, just a second, Hinata said as she made a hand seal. Byakugan. Her range of vision increased exponentially, expanding outwards for miles in every direction. She took some time to steady herself against the sense of vertigo and strangeness that accompanied the activation of her eyes before focusing on Naruto. It's hard to describe. I can't see through your transformation like I would be able to normally, but when I focus intently on you, you become blurry, but only slightly. She paused for a moment. Considering how proficient I've become with these eyes, I doubt most of my clan would even be capable of noticing it, no matter how hard they tried. Still, she turned towards the direction of the village, though I doubt they'd activate their eyes within the village just to study us. Be careful of the stronger members of my clan. My father, Niji and Aisen, and maybe a handful of my other relatives, they may be able to see through our disguise. There's no way they'd guess the truth, but still, I'd rather them not become suspicious of us. I guess that's not too surprising, Naruto said, face pensive, but do you think it's worth the risk? It's not perfect, but in a village filled with Hyuga, it's the best anyone could ask for, so I do think it's worth it. Besides, it's not as if we have much of a choice. Good point. Well then, he added, becoming excited, that means it's your turn. What do I do? She questioned. Imagine what you want your appearance to look like and how you want to sound, just like you would when performing a normal transformation, and keep the image firmly at the front of your mind as I apply the seal. After it's applied, you simply will it to activate by channeling chakra to the seal and having conscious desire to switch to your alternate appearance. You deactivate it the same way. Hinata thought for a minute, deciding on an appearance that she thought would be appropriate. Ready, she said. Naruto nodded before beginning the same set of hand seals he had used before. Once he finished, his hand began to glow again. Metamorphosis, he murmured again as he placed his hand to her left shoulder. Immediately she felt an odd sensation. She felt as if her body had somehow become water, constantly flowing and moving, never staying in exactly the same shape for more than an instant. It wasn't an unpleasant feeling, it was just odd. And then the feeling suddenly ceased, and as she looked at her shoulder she saw a design identical to her husband's. Naruto began to rock on his heels, steadying himself against the next to him with one arm. He seemed utterly exhausted. Are you okay? She asked him cautiously. Yeah, I'll be fine. Like I said, the seal is tiring to create. Tiring is an understatement, and not amused as she looked him over, taking in his weary appearance and ragged breathing, he looks about ready to fall over. After a few moments, Naruto had managed to catch his breath. Well, don't keep me waiting, he said, beaming. Let me see. That man, she thought, rolling her eyes inwardly. You'd think he'd have learned to take these sorts of situations more seriously by now. Sighing inwardly, Hinata began her transformation. Around her there was a large explosion of smoke through which she couldn't see. As the smoke cleared, she found Naruto staring at her. Well, how do I look? She asked nervously, not missing that her voice had changed to how she had imagined it as well. He seemed to fumble for something to say. Gorgeous, he whispered, but not as good as you normally look. I was just caught off guard, he added hurriedly. Hinata felt her cheeks flush slightly. She held her hair in front of her eyes. It had a silvery white hue, just as she'd imagined it before he'd placed the seal on her, and fell past her shoulders in a fashion similar to her original hairstyle. Her skin, she noticed, was a bit darker than it was before, as if it had been tanned slightly. She took a kunai out of her tool pouch and caught a reflection of the rest of her appearance. Her face, like her Naruto's, had become slightly more angular. Her eyes, however, were quite different. They were no longer stark white, and now had visible irises of a deep violet color. After a moment, she smiled. Well, I'm glad you like it, Hinata said as she put her kunai away. Now that our disguises are taken care of, is there anything else we need to do before we go to the village? She considered it, but couldn't think of anything else. I think we should be fine, she said, though the headbands will have to go, she reminded him as she took off her hitite and stored it into her pouch. Thanks for reminding me, Naruto said, doing the same with his own forehead protector. When we get there, I'm sure the old man will give us an audience. He always was willing to hear people out, and he's not about to turn down new ninja. Still, there's no way that he's ever left alone with strangers or that anyone will blindly believe we're really who we say we are, which we aren't. I'm guessing he always has 2 or 3 ANBUs somewhere in addition to the regular guards, just in case. Can you take care of them while I seal the room? Hinata raised an eyebrow. You do remember who you're talking to, right? She teased with a smirk. Naruto laughed. You know what I mean. Besides, it's not like I could do it not quietly at least. Hinata chuckled as well. I know, Naruto. You have many strong points, but subtlety has never been one of them. Well, he began, we should probably make our way over to the… He stopped, abruptly staring off into space. Naruto? Naruto, Hinata said, waving her hand in front of his face. He sighed. Sorry about that. It looks like we have a problem. A problem? He can explain it better than I can. After Naruto finished, his transformed face took on animalistic features as his eyes turned red. Girl, a familiar voice growled. Kurama. What's wrong? My power, he paused, it's gone. Hinata froze, eyes narrowing. Gone? She whispered. Yes. The trip was more dangerous than the toad thought, and I had to use all my chakra just to keep you two from being torn apart from the ravages of the time stream. Somehow, though, using my chakra to protect you from that trauma had an effect on me. I've been attempting to gather my power since before you regained consciousness, but it seems that I've been weakened somehow. I cannot give Naruto any power right now, nor can I regenerate it to what it was before. Perfect, she thought, another problem. Naruto is powerful in his own right, but without Kurama to help right now, countering Madara is going to be much more difficult. You don't have any good news, I'm guessing? There is one thing. Like I told the runt, I can feel my chakra returning gradually. It's slow, disgustingly slow, but it should still come back on its own in time. How much time? She asked. Kurama looked away. Months? Years? I cannot be sure. All I know is that it will be a long time before I can grant Naruto the level of power I could before. Until then, I will do what I can. Try to not get killed while I recover, though. I've just begun to tolerate you two slightly more than other humans. With that, Kurama was gone and Naruto's face returned to normal. Hinata sighed. Damn it. Yeah, this is definitely going to make things harder, Naruto replied. Still, there's not much we can do about it, so it's probably better to just not worry. You're right, Hinata agreed, though she was still concerned. Let's just focus on what we can do right now. That's my girl. Naruto grinned, though it didn't seem quite as confident as it normally would. Hinata laughed, her apprehension melting away just a bit. Everything will be fine, as long as we're together. Let's go, she said, motioning towards the village. Naruto nodded, and with that they were off. Naruto walked down the main street of the village, captivated by sights he never expected to see again. Well, that was easier than I'd expected it to be, he thought. Kotetsu and Izumo had been surprisingly willing to let them into the village. They'd simply sent a messenger to the Hokage Tower and told them to go there to await an audience. I guess this is what it means to live in peace. I'd almost forgotten. He looked over to his side. Hinata seemed just as out of place as he was. It's been so long it surprises me, he whispered. I feel the same, but it's nice, she said, smiling. Naruto smiled as well. He couldn't disagree. It had been a long time since he had felt such a sense of solace. Hey! Get back here! Someone shouted. You'll never catch me! A child shouted back. Naruto looked towards the commotion. Hinata laughed next to him. It can't be. It is, Naruto said, face palming. Running through the street right towards them was a young boy with bright blonde hair, carrying a bucket of paint and a brush. He ran past them laughing happily as he was chased by a pair of older ninja. I guess we know when we got sent back to now, Naruto said, embarrassed. I'm impressed you haven't gotten caught by those two yet. Well, he chuckled, I did have a lot of practice at pulling those pranks off. That one was definitely one of my favorites, though. What are you doing, Naruto? A familiar voice yelled. Until that part, Naruto sighed. Was that Iruka-sensei? She asked. Yeah, he was usually the one who caught me. He always seemed to know where I was. Somehow Naruto trailed off. Just then, they arrived at the Hokage Tower. It's just like I remembered it. Feels like old times, Hinata said. Are you ready? As much as I'll ever be. If nothing else, it'll be good to see the old man again, Naruto said. He walked inside, Hinata right beside him. Honestly, Sarutobi thought, sighing, sometimes I wonder if I spend more time filling out paperwork than actually watching over my village. The third Hokage lit his pipe once again as he sat back in his chair. And today would have had such a light load, too, if Naruto hadn't decided to vandalize an entire mountain, he thought with annoyance. What am I going to do with that boy? I know he wants attention, but right now all he's doing is wasting his potential. Hokage-sama, a man said, opening the door to the room, the two ninja from Whirlpool have arrived. Thank you, Genma, please send them in. Yes, sir, Genma replied. Well, he thought, at least this will be a welcome diversion. It's been some time since I've met anyone from Uzumaki, and even longer since any asked to join our ranks. And in Uzumaki perhaps I should introduce them to Naruto if nothing else. As he contemplated this development, two individuals, a couple he recalled, entered the room. The man was striking. Sarutobi did not miss the characteristic red hair of the Uzumaki clan, as well as his piercing blue eyes. He wore a black cloak that seemed oddly similar to the one Sarutobi's successor had worn, though that couldn't be anything more than a coincidence. Strangely, however, the man's entire demeanor, while powerful, seemed to also hold a hint of playful mischievousness about him. He couldn't quite put his finger on why, but it somehow reminded him of another red-haired Uzumaki that he hadn't thought about in a long time. The woman, on the other hand, seemed to complement him perfectly. She had flowing, silvery white hair and glowing violet eyes. She was more graceful than he was, but the Hokage had no doubt that she was his equal in strength and ability. Both of them exuded a quiet sense of power and confidence. Furthermore, though he doubted many would be able to notice it, both of those in front of him had the unmistakable bearing of one who was experienced. Not just in training or fighting, but in war as well. These were individuals who knew the true meaning of loss and sacrifice. However, Sarutobi had seen veterans of the Third War who seemed to carry less of a weight on their shoulders than the two before him, and he wondered what, exactly, they had experienced to make them this way in a time of peace. Oddest of all, the Hokage noted, was how they looked at him. Though he only saw their reactions for a second before they were hidden, for some reason both looked as if they had seen a ghost. Uzumaki Sora and Uzumaki Naomi, correct? I am Sarutobi Hiruzen, the third Hokage. I must say, it is a pleasure to see survivors of your clan alive and well. It has been quite some time since I've had the chance to meet with one of you. Sora and Naomi bowed to him. It's a pleasure to speak to you as well, though not one I'd have ever expected to have, Sora said. So, the Hokage replied, moving past the oddity of his statement, what brings you to Konoha? From what I understand, you wanted to join us. That and another reason, he said. He looked towards his companion, Naomi, and she nodded at him. Sorry, Hokage-sama, but we need to speak with you privately, she said. Immediately, the woman began to move. The veins around the woman's eyes bulged out, and she began performing a series of hand seals. It happened so quickly that Sarutobi couldn't react in time to stop them. As the woman finished, the Hokage felt a wave of power flow throughout the room. Just as she finished, the man threw a set of tags around the room, one for each of the 4 cardinal directions. He waited a few seconds, and then puffed one last time on his pipe before putting it down. Fuinjutsu, eh? He asked. It appears to be quite skillfully done. I take it no one can hear or see us in here? The man inclined his head. You are correct. Well, considering that no one has come rushing in here, it looks like you've managed to put 3 of my ANBU members, in addition to my normal guards, under a genjutsu just long enough to seal the room, but not long enough for them to notice it. I must say, I'm impressed, he said as he rose unhurriedly from his chair. At this comment, the woman smirked. Well, I did have an excellent teacher, she said. I don't doubt that. It's rare to find a genjutsu master of such talent. He paused. You know, it's been quite some time since I've had an attempt on my life. I do wish you'd come some other time, though. I've had a long few hours, he sighed. Well, let's get on with it. I don't have all day. At this, the two strangers shared a look. Then the man burst into laughter. What are you laughing at? Sarutobi asked, confused. Of all the actions he could imagine of an assassin facing a Kage-level opponent, laughing seemed the least likely of all of them. Sora grinned. Now that you've mentioned it, I do wonder how well I'd match up to you. However, if we wanted to kill you, do you really think we'd walk into your office in broad daylight to do it? Sarutobi narrowed his eyes. Is there any other reason a random stranger would have for putting a seal on my office so my guards don't come rushing in? He has a point, Naomi said, shrugging. So much for trying not to look like assassins. I guess you're right, he replied to her. We should probably just show him. Show me what? What are you talking about? Sarutobi asked. To this, Sora just smiled. Then there was a burst of smoke, and two new people were standing in front of him. No, it can't be, the Hokage whispered. He paused, his thoughts in complete disarray. Minato? He asked, unable to hide his shock. After his initial surprise, Sarutobi brought himself to focus on the woman standing next to this man, finally noticing her stark white eyes. And are you a Hyuga? What is the meaning of this? The strange man, for the Hokage was now certain that Sora was not his true name, looked away. Well, you have one of us right, old man, she is a Hyuga, but no, I am not my father. The Hokage frowned at the way he was addressed, trying to mask his confusion. Father? Do you really expect me to believe that Minato had a son? The man turned back towards him, grinning. Of course, old man, you did take care of me for the first 12 years of my life after all. I'm Naruto, and this, he said, placing his hand on the woman's shoulder, is Hinata. The Hokage narrowed his eyes once again, not bothering to hide his skepticism. He did see the resemblance. Indeed, the man looked much like what Sarutobi would have imagined Naruto to look within the next 15 years or so. However, ignoring the fact that this man also had what appeared to be a Byakugan for one eye, he was obviously not the same 12-year-old that he constantly had to look after. Furthermore, though he claimed his companion was the Hyuga heiress, she, too, was obviously not the same, shy, 12-year-old girl he had come to know. Still, he admitted, for this man to know that Naruto is Minato's son, or perhaps he's just making assumptions based on their similar appearances and is fishing for confirmation. Do you really expect me to believe that two 12-year-olds from my village lied to get an audience with me, placed a genjutsu on all of my guards, and managed to seal this room? Without even the slightest bit of trouble? Sarutobi asked dryly. Not exactly, the man said, looking away again. He is Naruto and I am Hinata, the woman chimed in, but not the ones that you know. It may sound ridiculous, but we're from the future, she said, almost sounding as if she herself was unsure of the truth of what she was saying. The Hokage's first thought was to simply scoff at them and ask for the truth, but for some reason he couldn't do that just yet. He had seen and heard strange things in his life before, though this was without a doubt the most far-fetched. However, if what the woman said was true, then everything that they were saying, all of the inconsistencies, would make sense. Why should I believe you? He hazarded, ignoring the absurdity of even considering their claim. Suddenly, the man's face changed, contorting into a feral snarl, because, Hiruzen, a new voice spoke, if you don't believe them, your precious village will burn. The Hokage froze. This presence, he thought to himself, no genjutsu or ninjutsu would be able to mimic it so perfectly. You're the Kyuubi, he stated, taking a step back from the possessed man. So that really must be Naruto. Then a terrible thought occurred to him. And now you're possessing him? How did you manage to break the seal? At this accusation, the demon just scoffed. Please, he said, rolling his eyes. The brat himself unlocked that seal a decade ago. He turned his head towards Hinata. I've proven your identity, so I'm done talking with this fool. You two can finish dealing with him. With that, the man, who the Hokage now had no choice but to admit was Naruto, returned to normal. Sorry, Naruto apologized. Kurama does that sometimes. At this point, the Hokage could honestly say that he had never been more confused and dumbfounded in his entire life. I believe you, he murmured, slumping back into his chair. You do? Naruto asked, blinking in surprise. Even we'll admit that this all sounds pretty impossible. Yes, well, impossible or not, there's little other choice considering that the last I heard, the Kyuubi was still locked behind his seal and his Jinchuriki was busy running around vandalizing monuments. The Hokage sighed. I'd rather you'd simply been assassins, it would have been easier. So tell me, why have you two come back, Naruto, Hinata? I didn't even know such a thing was possible. The two before him instantly took on the appearance of individuals who were very old and very tired, and from seeing their faces Sarutobi could tell that they had gone through worse than even the survivors of the Third War. Naruto sighed heavily. War, old man, he whispered. A war that razed the entire world to the ground. For a moment Sarutobi was silent, thinking while the implications of what Naruto said dawned on him. Why? He asked. What happened? Naruto simply covered his eyes with his hand, growing a bitter smile. Why? To feed the ambitions of a single madman, he said, letting out a sad laugh. So many dead, and in the end, all we did was slow him down. As he lowered his hand, the Hokage both sadness and rage in his expression. You've heard of Akatsuki? Hinata asked as she looked towards Naruto, laying a hand on his shoulder. Scattered reports, mostly from Jiraiya, and he trailed off. We know the truth about Itachi, Naruto supplied. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised, the Hokage replied. But yes, I've received reports from Jiraiya and the occasional correspondence from Itachi, but other than their major objective, I know little about the organization. Why? What do they have to do with this? They're the cause, Hinata said sadly, looking back towards the Hokage. Their leader is Uchiha Madara, and he was winner of the Fourth Shinobi World War. Madara? Sarutobi asked, frowning. He's still alive? I knew he was strong, but to challenge our entire village and win. Not just our village, Naruto said. All 5 of the great villages joined together to fight him. All 5? The Hokage exclaimed, astounded that the formation of such an alliance, as well as its defeat, could occur only a few years into the future. How could he possibly have defeated the power of all of the villages combined? This time Hinata answered. He couldn't normally. Though we'd killed most of the members of Akatsuki by then, they'd still managed to capture the first 7 of the tailed beasts. They'd also managed to obtain portions of the chakra from the Hachibi and Kurama. Somehow Madara was able to combine them to recreate the Jubi and become its Jinchuriki, effectively becoming a second sage of the 6 paths. He claimed his goal was to use all of this power to cast a genjutsu on the entire world, Naruto continued. For some reason though, he was never actually able to do it. Unless he changed his mind or was just lying the entire time, we think it must have had something to do with him being incomplete because he lacked 8 and 9 tails themselves. Either way, for the last 10 years our army struggled to fight back and find some way to defeat him, but we never could. Sending us back in time was the best chance we've had since the war first went downhill. 10 years? The Hokage thought to himself sadly. I became Hokage to protect these children from the horrors of war. It seems that I have failed them terribly on that account. Uchiha Madara, the sage of the 6 paths, the 10 tails. Sarutobi whispered, this all sounds so impossible, but it's true, isn't it? Naruto and Hinata both nodded. How long do we have? He asked. Thankfully, Akatsuki didn't begin to move in earnest until a couple of years from now in our time, and even then it was still quite a while before the war itself broke out, so we'll be able to prepare, Hinata answered. However, there are still other problems and dangers which hurt the leaf that we hope to prevent. Those began during the upcoming Chunin exams. I see. Well, it is good to know that we still have some time. However, I must also ask about the Kyuubi. Kurama, you called him, did you really unlock his seal? I did, Naruto replied. But to be honest, I trust Kurama with my life. There's no way I would have survived this past decade without his help. Then Hinata spoke up. Furthermore, Kurama didn't attack the village of his own will. It was Madara who'd initially released him from Kushina. He also used his Sharingan to control Kurama and force him to attack the village. I see, the Hokage murmured. That certainly does answer some questions I had from that night. As he studied the faces of those in front of him, he remembered something. Also, Naruto. That eye of yours, Sarutobi finished, letting the question remain unspoken. Naruto reflexively reached up towards his left eye, before turning away. Hinata looked towards him with a sad expression on her face. It was a parting gift from Hanabi, he answered quietly. Sarutobi was quiet, studying the young man for a moment. His grief is still fresh, he obviously hasn't had that eye for very long, but I can't help but wonder why he seems to feel so guilty. What do you plan to do? The Hokage asked him, changing the subject. Naruto looked towards him resolutely, determination evident on his face. We'll fight. We'll win. He smiled. I'm not someone who gives up after just one try, even time can't stop me. Sarutobi nodded. Perhaps he hasn't changed as much as I'd thought. I'd never have expected myself to feel this way, but I'm happy for that. You've grown, Naruto, Sarutobi complimented. Tell me, did you ever achieve your dream? At this, Naruto chuckled, rubbing the back of his head in embarrassment. To tell you the truth, old man, I never made it past Genin. Genin? Sarutobi asked, shocked. I was almost certain that he'd really managed to become Hokage. Hinata just sighed. No, he didn't, but that's only because he spent 2 years training with Jiraiya-san. After the war began, we didn't bother wasting time on unnecessary titles. But for some reason, she said, rolling her eyes as if she'd had to deal with this situation too many times before, he likes to conveniently forget that he was the field commander of our army, effectively making him the equivalent of a Kage in all but name. We simply haven't had an official Kage from any village since Tsunade-sama, and the others died 10 years ago. Come on, Hinata-chan. Naruto griped playfully. You know I haven't cared about being a genin in ages. Sarutobi nodded distractedly in acceptance of Hinata's explanation, barely even noticing Naruto's response. Training with Jiraiya? And Tsunade as Hokage? he whispered. Then he quickly reined in his curiosity. I apologize, I'm getting off track, he said, looking towards the couple in front of him. I'm sorry, but at this rate our conversation will continue for the entire day. We can discuss more of your knowledge of the future later, but you should leave soon so that my guards don't become too suspicious. First, though, tell me, did you two only come here to inform me of these upcoming events? Hinata shook her head. While we thought it best to hide our true identities from all but you for now, we actually would like to rejoin the village, to help with both this and other matters. I understand. Sarutobi said, smiling. Konoha would be more than happy to have you. The cover you've developed was quite clever. There shouldn't be too many questions about Whirlpool Shinobi joining our village. So how exactly will this work? Naruto asked curiously. Standard procedure for joining Konoha is rather simple. All shinobi who wish to join the village only need to obtain my approval, which I will give to you. After that, regardless of ability, all of these shinobi must serve a mandatory probationary period as a genin before they are eligible for promotion. The Hokage sighed. I apologize for this, especially given the fact that you are already leaf shinobi and are obviously among the most capable in the village, but I do not want to draw too much attention to you by excusing you from this requirement. Don't worry, Naruto assured him. Like Hinata said, we haven't put much emphasis on rank in a long time. Besides, he added as he looked out the window towards the village, I'm just glad to see my home again. I'm glad you understand. Still, know that I will promote you as soon as I am able. I wouldn't be so cruel as to make you two take the Chunin exams to progress. Furthermore, despite your official status as genin, you will still be assigned higher-level missions due to your abilities and be compensated accordingly. Given the circumstances, I will also give you the autonomy to operate independently, and do what you deem necessary to prevent this war that you've told me of. In the meantime, I'll trust you two to inform me of any important events or developments. Of course, Hinata replied, you can count on us. Before you leave, we'll have to make sure you have enough to live on for the time being. Take this, he said as he pulled a few envelopes from his desk. These are the equivalent to what you'd get for completing several S-rank missions. You'll find enough money in there to support yourselves for the next few months while you get settled down and begin to complete your own missions. Naruto eyed the envelopes apprehensively. Old man. I insist, Sarutobi said. Besides, I'm sure you've more than earned it through the past 10 years. Thank you, Naruto said as he took the envelopes and put them away. Thank you, Hokage-sama, Hinata repeated. We also need to find you somewhere to live as well. The village keeps empty housing for occasions such as this. You can take one of those to live in as long as you need to, he said as he began to look through his desk for a list of vacant homes. However, you should probably live together since I believe that being married was also a part of your cover. I hope you don't mind. At this statement, both of them fidgeted in embarrassment. Sarutobi looked up, confused. Is something wrong? He asked. Actually, Naruto began before trailing off quickly. We really are married, Hokage-sama, Hinata finished, blushing slightly. Sarutobi stared at them for a moment, and then laughed. Really now? He asked with amusement. Well, I can't say I'm too surprised, I suppose. The Hinata I know has been following Naruto around for the past few years after all. Following me around? Naruto asked with a puzzled look on his face. What are you talking about? So yes, sharing a home won't be a problem, Hinata interrupted hurriedly, slightly redder than she had been seconds before. The Hokage smiled at the two of them. Yes, he thought to himself, now that I think about it, those two do work well together. Here we are, the Hokage said, finally finding the set of papers he was looking for. He handed the papers over to the couple and waited silently as they looked through and discussed them. We'll take this one, Naruto said, pointing to one of the entries. Sarutobi scanned through the entry. It was an apartment on the far end of the village, opposite the Hyuga estate. Ah. I couldn't detect it, but you're worried about your clan seeing through that henge of yours, aren't you? He said. Hinata nodded yes. The technique we used is rather advanced, but someone skilled enough with the Byakugan may still be able to spot some abnormalities. I see, Sarutobi said, understanding her apprehension. That is a danger that is best avoided, especially with your eyes. Very well, this apartment also happens to be fully furnished, so that will make things easier as well. He filled out the necessary paperwork to allow the two ninja to live in the home, as well the forms necessary to grant them the status of genin within the village. These forms contain my approval for you to become ninja of the village and to live in the apartment you chose. Take them to the personnel office downstairs and they will take care of the rest. Thanks for everything you're doing, old man, Naruto answered. We're very grateful, Hinata affirmed. They both bowed. We'll leave for now, Naruto said, but we'll contact you if anything comes up. He paused. Also, it's not much to worry about, but I'm sorry about what my younger self is going to do tomorrow. All right, Sarutobi said warily. I wonder what he means by that. It's probably just some prank to celebrate his final exam. The Hokage watched as Naruto and Hinata transformed back into their disguises and took down the tags around his office. As they were about to open the door to leave, he remembered Naruto's earlier comment about never being promoted and stopped them. Naruto? He asked. Naruto and Hinata both stopped and turned towards him. I want you to know that I believe you would have made an excellent Hokage, had you been given the chance. Naruto stared at him for a moment, and then grinned. Thanks, old man, really, it means a lot, but it's alright. It doesn't matter to me whether or not I'm a Hokage. All I really care about now is saving this village. The Hokage nodded in response and Naruto turned to go. But don't you see, Naruto? Sarutobi thought with a small smile as he watched the couple leave. That desire to save the village, regardless of fame or recognition, is exactly why you would have made such a good Hokage. I'm so proud of who you've become. As the door closed, Sarutobi calmly picked up his pipe and lit it, his paperwork forgotten, as he pondered what this day's events meant for the future of his beloved village. That went well, Hinata said a few minutes after they left the building. Yeah, Naruto agreed. Shikamaru was right. The old man definitely was the best person to talk to. He looked back towards the tower. What did you do to stop them from noticing us anyway? I used a subtle technique to misdirect their senses, she answered. I only made it strong enough so that your seals wouldn't be noticed, and only held it for a moment, so none of them noticed the change. That's amazing, Naruto complimented her. Sometimes I wish that I wasn't so horrible at genjutsu. It really does seem like it'd be useful. Hinata smirked. I have my tricks and you have yours, she reminded him teasingly. We're a team for a reason, you know. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, you're right. They walked in silence for a bit longer before Hinata remembered something. Now that I think about it, she began as they walked through an empty side street. Why did you apologize to the Hokage right before we left? Naruto stopped walking and shifted uncomfortably. She paused, looking at him. What is it? She pushed, becoming concerned. Well, you see, he trailed off. Yes? It has to do with how I passed the academy exam and became a genin. She thought for a moment, digging up old memories. That's right, she said, I remember now. You failed that exam, but still managed to become a genin. You never did tell me how. He shifted again. Yeah, it had to do with that. I didn't want to make you angry. Angry? She thought to herself, why would he be afraid that I'd get angry? Naruto may be exasperating sometimes, but I don't recall either of us ever being truly angry at the other. She raised an eyebrow at him. You see, he continued, responding to the unspoken question, I sort of, maybe, stolen the scroll of seals from the Hokage's house. Hinata frowned. The scroll filled with forbidden techniques? I can't say that was smart to do, she chastised him, but I don't know why you think I'd be angry about it, especially since it happened so long ago. Or at least it did for us, she amended. Besides, I've done my fair share of dumb things too. She started to walk, but Naruto grabbed her hand and she turned to face him again. Actually there's more. He paused. The reason I did it was because Mizuki-sensei told me if I stole it and learned one of the techniques inside that I could graduate. That's actually how I learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu, he added. But Mizuki-sensei lied to me so that he could steal the scroll himself. Hinata froze, staring wide-eyed at her husband. Naruto hurried onward. I didn't know that it wasn't allowed, so a bunch of ninja were sent after me. Iruka-sensei was the one who found me. Right when I was trying to explain, Mizuki-sensei came out of nowhere and tried to kill us both. Naruto looked away. He was the one who first told me that I was the Jinchuriki for the Nine Tails and that it was the reason why everyone hated me growing up. But Iruka-sensei said that he believed in me and I beat Mizuki-sensei to protect him. After that, he said that I graduated and could become a genin. He finished, looking slightly afraid of how she'd react. Mizuki-sensei, she whispered, I always wondered what had happened to him, but I never thought. She clenched her fist. He tried to kill you? That bastard. She growled. I'll put nightmares so terrible in his mind that he'll wish I'd killed him instead. She narrowed her eyes and suddenly her Byakugan activated unconsciously in reaction to her anger. Where is he? Damn, I knew she'd be angry, he muttered, looking around to make sure no one had heard them. Hinata. Naruto said that's probably not a good idea, especially since none of this will even happen until tomorrow. Besides, if we stop Mizuki-sensei from tricking the younger me, there's no way that will change things for the better. He won't become a genin or become friends with Sasuke, Sakura, and everyone else if we stop Mizuki-sensei. I'm not sure if I'd even get the chance to become friends with you, he said, looking into her eyes. Damn it, he has a point, she thought to herself, sighing as she deactivated her eyes. You're right. I'm sorry, I didn't really think that through all the way, she admitted, though she was still angry. Naruto took her hand, squeezing it. I understand. I know you're protective of me. After all, I still remember that time you almost got yourself killed saving me from pain, he said with a grimace. But considering how I reacted, I may be even more protective than you are. She nodded, remembering the stories she'd heard of Naruto's rampage after she was struck down. I guess we'll just have to be careful with what we do sometimes, she said. As they began to walk away, Hinata's anger was still simmering despite her acceptance of the situation. Naruto? She asked as a thought came to her. HM? Did you ever see Mizuki-sensei again after that night? No, I didn't. Why? Just because I'm not chasing after him right now doesn't mean I'll forgive him. Make no mistake, if I ever see him again after tomorrow night, I will shatter his mind, she threatened. Remind me never to get on your bad side. She smiled, you could never get on my bad side. She squeezed his hand a bit harder as they continued to walk through the village. As the sun was beginning to set, Naruto and Hinata walked towards the outskirts of the village in a direction leading them away from their new apartment. Neither had actually suggested or commented on their route. There was no need to. Both had felt the same, constant, pull to their destination ever since they had arrived in the village. There it is, Naruto said, seeing their goal as they walked into a clearing. In the center of the area was a large, beautiful, stone memorial. Once they stopped in front of the structure, he watched as Hinata reached out, gently laying her hand on its face. Our friends' names may not be on this stone, but still, I'm glad we came here, Naruto thought to himself as he bowed his head. Even if everyone's alive now, it wouldn't be right to just forget the people we knew, the ones who fought and died to give us this chance, he reflected as an image of Bee flashed through his mind. They stood there for a few minutes before Naruto broke the silence. I think everyone would have laughed at us if they had heard the crazy plan we gambled on, Naruto said, a touch of amusement in his voice. Hinata smiled fondly, shaking her head. I don't. Betting on this might have been foolhardy, even a bit crazy, but still I'm sure that the others would have been proud knowing that even when things were at their darkest, we still had the courage to keep fighting. To try and defy destiny itself. Naruto chuckled. Well, I guess when you say it that way, it does sound more impressive. Maybe you're right. They continued to watch the monument, content to simply stay lost in their respective thoughts. Well, a familiar voice said, it's rare to see other visitors out here. Naruto turned, smiling at the man, I should have guessed that he might show up here. Yo, the silver-haired man said, I don't think we've met. Hatake Kakashi, at your service. I'm Uzumaki Sora, Naruto answered, and this is my wife, Uzumaki Naomi. We've just joined your village as genin. It's a pleasure to meet you, Hatake-san, Hinata added. The pleasure is all mine, and please feel free to call me Kakashi. We're going to be comrades after all, he replied. Uzumaki? It's been a while since I've met one of your clan, though we do have one of your members in our village. He chuckled. It's also been a while since I've met such obviously skilled genin. I'd forgotten about that rule for new additions. Hinata shrugged, it's just a rank, so we don't particularly care that much about it. We're just happy to have been accepted into the village. That's a good attitude to have. Skill always meant more to me than rank. Anyway, he looked behind them towards the memorial. I'm curious. Since you've just joined us, I doubt that you're old enough to know any of the names on this stone. I wonder why would you come here? Because it's a reminder, Hinata answered, looking towards the stone. Of others we've known and lost. But more than that, Naruto continued, we came because it helps us remember that we never want to see another name have to be etched into that stone. Kakashi was silent for a moment. You know, I plan to test some academy students in the next few days to see if they are ready to become genin. In the off chance that they actually pass and I become their instructor, I would be honored if you would join us during training one day. I don't know who they are yet, but I get the feeling that any genin would have something to learn from you too. Naruto frowned. You would ask complete strangers to train with your genin? He asked in surprise. Well now, Kakashi said, a hint of a smile appearing underneath his mask, you are now Konoha Shinobi and I have no reason not to trust my comrades. Besides, the reason you came here for some reason it reminds me of my old sensei. If you are even the slightest bit like him, I would want my students to meet you. Naruto nodded blankly at the unexpected comparison to his father. We'll think about it, he said honestly, looking towards Hinata, who also seemed a little surprised. Please do, Kakashi said. If they do pass, we will train in this area on weekdays. If not, he shrugged, you'll probably find me here at least. To be honest, I would like to speak with you again, regardless of whether or not I have genin to train. Naruto smiled, looking back at Kakashi, so would I. He turned towards Hinata and she nodded. Unfortunately, we have to leave now, but I'm sure we'll see you again, Naruto said. It was nice to meet you, Hinata added. Kakashi nodded at them, you as well? Good night. He gave them a lazy salute, then turned back towards the stone to begin his silent vigil. With that, Naruto and Hinata left the clearing, walking in the direction of a home that they never dared hope to see again. Again, Naomi instructed him. Sora got up shakily, taking a deep breath. Byakugan! He cried, forming a hand seal. Immediately his sense of perception changed drastically. He could see nearly everything within 50 meters around him. More than that, he could also see the chakra networks of every living thing within his field of perception. The experience was beyond his wildest dreams, even after having his wife describe it to him. It was also too much. He gasped, falling to the ground as his vision returned to normal. He felt terrible, as if he were experiencing a horrible mix of vertigo, nausea and mental fatigue, all at the same time. How can you stand this? He groaned for the 100th time. Naomi knelt down next to him, rubbing his back soothingly. Practice, she told him again. You just need to practice. The couple was in a secluded area of the forest, about 3 kilometers away from the village and, more importantly, prying eyes. As the pair had only been in the village for 10 days, they still had a great deal of free time, so they had been coming to the same spot every morning so Sora could begin to learn how to use the Byakugan that now served as his left eye. Sora sighed, at this rate, it will be months before I can actually use this in a fight, and that's only assuming I get the chance to train every day. Naomi pursed her lips. Actually, she corrected him, you're doing quite well. The first few weeks training with the Byakugan are always the worst. You can already handle using it for about 5 minutes, so I doubt it will take longer than a month or so for you to be able to handle keeping it active indefinitely. After that, actually learning how to fight with it, and how to read chakra networks will be a lot less uncomfortable. Sora pushed himself up and into a sitting position, still feeling nauseous. Really? It's that common to have this much trouble? Naomi smiled at him. Did you really expect adjusting to 360 vision with a huge sight range would be easy? Honestly. Yes, it's common. Learning to use the Byakugan isn't about motivation or training. It's more about getting your mind used to your new sense of sight than anything else, otherwise you'd be able to master it in a day with your shadow clones. She laughed lightly, you're doing well, Sora. She said, hesitating slightly at having to use his assumed name, I promise you that. Better than most do, that's for sure. Just remember this. You mustn't try to focus on everything at once, that's impossible. Using the Byakugan is not about what you can see, it's about being able to focus on what matters while ignoring all of the distractions. Distractions? Sora asked. Yes, she answered. While you are able to see everything for an incredible distance, it doesn't matter unless you can ignore what's unnecessary. Otherwise you'll be too focused on your surroundings to be any use in a fight. That makes sense, he said, getting up and stretching. I guess I just didn't expect this to be so complicated. I figured I would be able to just push through and train like I normally do. How many times do I have to explain that you can't just learn everything by training? Naomi sighed. Sora laughed at her, rubbing his head in embarrassment. Naomi rolled her eyes at him. She looked up towards the sun and saw that it was about an hour before midday. Anyway, we've been here for 5 hours, so that's enough for today. Do you want to go back home now? Or maybe we should stop by the Hokage's office again. I'm sure he's not too mad at you for the scroll anymore. He grimaced at the memory of how annoyed the Hokage had been with him for his younger self's actions when they'd visited 4 days before. Maybe just a couple more days, he thought. Actually, Sora answered, I was thinking about Kakashi's offer again. I think we should go by and see them. Naomi cocked her head questioningly. Are you sure? Weren't you the one who said we shouldn't interfere with things, like the other day with Mizuki-sensei? I know, he said, but stopping him would have had many more consequences, most of them bad. It would have changed everything and made the future too unpredictable. Giving our friends a little push, on the other hand, shouldn't change as much or make anything worse. Sasuke especially, he trailed off. Anyway, I didn't mean we should do nothing, just that we need to weigh the consequences before we intervene in the bigger events. Naomi pursed her lips. You have a point, she admitted. I suppose we already started to get involved the second we met with the Hokage. Then she smiled. Okay, let's go. If we're going to see Team 7 though, we might as well try and see everyone else too at some point. She frowned. My younger self, especially, could use a little help. What? Why? Sora asked, confused. I never remember there being anything wrong with you. Naomi laughed and kissed him on the cheek, which only served to confuse him further. What was that for? Not that I mind. For not knowing what I'm talking about, she answered happily. Don't worry, I can handle her. Weird, Sora thought. I wonder what she meant by that. Anyway, he said, changing the subject, if we leave now we should be able to get there before they start doing anything too important. Sora, she said, looking puzzled, you know it's around 11, right? Shouldn't your team have started practice hours ago? I don't mind going, but I still don't want to barge in right in the middle of whatever exercise they're doing. He sighed. Don't worry, I doubt they've been doing anything for too long. But she started, I'm sure I saw all three of you at that training ground hours before this time at some point or another. Sora frowned. Let's just say Kakashi-sensei was never the most punctual of teachers. If you say so, she said, obviously still skeptical. Trust me, he said, starting to leave the clearing. To be honest, there's a good chance that he's not even there yet. Wow, Naomi said with astonishment, I never thought Kakashi-sensei would be so unreliable. Sora rolled his eyes. Oh, he's reliable when it counts, it's just that when it doesn't matter, he trailed off, letting the implication hang. The pair was hidden in a tree at the third training ground watching three miserable-looking genin complain as they waited for their teacher. What was wrong with your teachers? She teased. First an irresponsible and eccentric flake, then a perverted old man. Ero-sen wasn't that bad, Sora insisted. You only say that because Jiraiya-sen never peeked into your bathhouses. He chuckled quietly. You know, Naomi said to him, a thought coming to her, when we go down there we'll probably have some trouble with Sasuke-kun, right? Sora sighed. Yeah. I know. He's actually what I'm worried about the most. Sasuke never was very good about respecting other people's teachings at this age. Even Kakashi-sensei had trouble. It'll be even harder for us once he finds out we're genin. Still, we owe it to him to at least try. Just remember to be forceful, he added. I know you don't like to be that way, but we don't have much choice with Sasuke. Actions will mean more than words ever could to him, so we may end up having to beat some sense into him as a last resort. She smiled at him. It's okay, I don't mind. We'll get through to him somehow. She let the conversation drop and continued to watch the children for a few more minutes. You know, it's hard to believe we were like that all those years ago, she whispered fondly, breaking the silence. They seemed so inexperienced, so carefree. He smiled slightly at her, a bit of nostalgia in the expression. It's weird, right? But still, this is the way things should be. They are only 12 after all. I know, she agreed softly. But it's not the way things will be, she thought to herself sadly. They sat there, quietly lost in thought. After about 10 more minutes of watching, however, there was a large puff of smoke in the middle of the field where the three genin were waiting. Yo, Kakashi called out nonchalantly to his students. You're late. Naruto and Sakura yelled. Kakashi looked away. Well, you see, there was a little boy who was looking for his lost dog and… Liar! Sakura interrupted him. You're never on time, Naruto shouted. Sasuke just quietly stared daggers at him. Kakashi laughed sheepishly before noticing their hidden guests. Not bad, he thought to himself. It took me this long to notice them, and it doesn't even seem like they're trying. So you came, he said, smiling, which earned looks of confusion from his students. I wasn't sure if you would. He watched as the couple jumped down from their perch, surprising his young students. Well, you did invite us, Kakashi-san, Naomi said to him, a hint of annoyance in her voice. Though you forgot to mention that you weren't going to show up until hours after your students arrived. Well, Kakashi answered quickly. Like I was explaining to them, there was this little boy and… Sora just sighed, rolling his eyes. Don't even try, he said tiredly. It was as if he was far past the point of caring about Kakashi's habit, even though Kakashi had only met the pair once before. Kakashi laughed again, embarrassed. Sensei? Sakura asked. Who are they? I haven't mentioned them yet, have I? Kakashi said. This is Uzumaki Sora and his wife Uzumaki Naomi. They just became genin of this village. What? Naruto shouted towards him. Uzumaki? When did you meet them? Why didn't you tell me about them? Kakashi shrugged. I forgot. Besides, you were bound to run into them at some point or another. Kakashi turned his attention back to the couple, noticing their confusion at the exchange. I mentioned before that there was an Uzumaki in our village? He told them. As luck would have it, he was one of the students I tested. This is Uzumaki Naruto. I see, Naomi said as she turned towards Naruto with a smile. It's a pleasure to meet you, though I believe we saw you when we first entered the village. I must say, I rather enjoyed your decorations to the monument, she added with a twinkle in her eye. Naruto ran towards them, grinning hugely. If you like that, just wait until you see. Naruto, Kakashi said plainly. We've discussed this. Please don't encourage him, Naomi-san, he added, which earned him a laugh from her. Naruto flushed. Oh right, I'm not allowed to do pranks anymore, but still I didn't know there even was an Uzumaki clan or that I even had any family. Kakashi looked away at the comment, reminded again of how lonely the boy's life had been. It'll be better from now on, he told himself. Now that I'm his teacher, I can make sure that he isn't treated so poorly anymore. I'll train him to be the hero Sensei wanted him to be. And those two, surely they'll help him too, right? They are his family, even if they've only just met. You idiot, Sakura said, sounding annoyed, though she was still smiling slightly at his discovery. You realize that we learned about the Uzumaki clan at the academy, right? They were an important clan in the hidden Whirlpool village. Oh. Of course, Sakura-chan. Naruto exclaimed hurriedly. I knew that, I just forgot until now. He rubbed the back of his head while laughing. Kakashi coughed, regaining everyone's attention, and waved Naruto back over to their group. As for my other two students, this, he said, gesturing towards Sakura, is Harino Sakura. And this, he said, gesturing towards Sasuke, is Uchiha Sasuke. What are you doing here? Sasuke asked quietly from beside Kakashi. Kakashi looked at Sasuke. He sounded annoyed, but there was a hint of something else. Damn, Kakashi thought. Naruto suddenly having family members appear out of nowhere? I should have known he'd be at least a little jealous. It wasn't much of a surprise. The reaction would be natural for anyone, especially someone who went through the things Sasuke had. Kakashi sighed. Although they would never admit it, he could see that Naruto and Sasuke were starting to grow on each other in their short time as teammates. It wasn't much, it hadn't even been 2 weeks, after all, but the signs were still there. Kakashi suspected that one of the biggest reasons for this was because either of them had a family. That commonality, though unfortunate, had still helped to begin bringing them together. I'll just have to hope this won't push Sasuke away. He's already difficult enough to work with as it is. He turned his attention to Sasuke. I ran into these two last week, the day they arrived in the village. It was a few days before I gave you your genin test, actually. We talked, and I decided that any new ninja could benefit from their knowledge, so I asked them to come by during training one day. Though I wasn't sure whether or not they would or not. They're genin, Sasuke said in annoyance. Sensei, they look like they're your age and they're still genin. What could I possibly learn from them? His expression became smug. I guess I'm not surprised, though, if they're related to the dobe. What did you say? Naruto yelled. Sasuke, Kakashi warned. Sora held up a hand, cutting Kakashi off. It's all right, he said, showing no sign of being offended. He turned his attention back to Sasuke. It's true that we're genin, but you're wrong if you think that means there's nothing we can teach you. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. I have nothing to learn from people who are weaker than I am. He looked towards Kakashi. I'm going to train on my own. I won't waste any more time with these weaklings. He turned to leave. Kakashi shook his head. He still has much to learn. Just as he was about to call out to the boy, Naomi's voice rang out. It's true that we are weak. Or at least too weak to protect what was important to us, she said wistfully, gazing towards the sky. But that does not mean that we are weaker than you, she finished, lowering her eyes to stare intently at Sasuke. Sasuke stopped. What did you say? He asked dangerously. Hey! Sakura interjected. Sasuke-kun isn't weak. Now's not the time, Sakura, Kakashi thought in frustration. Still, maybe this will be a good chance for Sasuke to learn to stop being so disrespectful and arrogant. He looked towards Sora and saw the hint of satisfaction in his face, and perhaps they see that too. Naomi just smiled at him. I don't wish to insult you, Sasuke-kun, but I knew a man quite like you when I was younger. He was my husband's best friend, she said, looking towards Sora, but his arrogance and pride blinded him, leading him to make bad decisions. You would be better off not making the same mistakes. I've already said that there's nothing for you to teach me, Sasuke said coldly. Now stop trying to lecture me. He started to walk away again. If you really believe that you're stronger than us, prove it, she said. Sasuke turned around, glaring at the woman. Then he smirked smugly. Do you really think a regular genin can beat an Uchiha? He asked. Yes, she said flatly. Though honestly, I'm not sure I'd call either of us regular. Fine, he said, walking to stand in front of the pair. I'll fight both of you at once, that way you might have at least some chance. Sora looked towards his wife, and she nodded at him. I'll pass, he said calmly, stepping away from her. I'm sure Naomi will be more than enough to match you. Sasuke's smirk grew wider. It's your loss. But just so you know, I'm going to beat you after I'm finished with her, he said, pointing at Naomi. I won't let you hide behind that woman. I'd be careful about underestimating Naomi, Sora responded, ignoring the insult. I will warn you though. If you want to have any chance of winning, you should have your friends help you, he said as he looked at the other two genin. I'm not helping that bastard, Naruto yelled. Sasuke-kun doesn't even need our help, Sakura said. Unless you want me to help, of course, Sasuke-kun, she added hesitantly. They're not my friends, Sasuke said. Besides, all they'll do is drag me down. Kakashi sighed in exasperation. After they passed my bell test, I was really hoping they would be able to get along more easily than this. I guess I shouldn't too surprised that a few lectures on the importance of teamwork aren't enough. Naruto and Sakura walked away from Kakashi, trying to get a better view of the match. Sora, on the other hand, walked past them, completely unconcerned as he came up beside Kakashi. Kakashi nodded towards Sasuke. You did that on purpose, I assume? Sora nodded, though it was a bit hesitant. In a way it was. We actually learned a bit about all three of your students before we came here. Sasuke-kun seemed the most difficult to deal with of the three. We didn't plan for things to happen like this, but if we wanted to have any chance of him respecting and listening to us, there wasn't much choice but to do things this way. Though honestly, it may have happened anyway. Naomi, she's never been fond of those who show arrogance. Either way, I'm sorry about this, he finished. Kakashi shook his head. It's fine. Truthfully, it will probably be a good lesson for him. He still doesn't seem to value teamwork as much as he should. Besides, I did ask for you to come as a favor. It would be wrong to question your methods. Thank you, Kakashi-san. Still, he said, I'm curious. If you knew who my genin were beforehand, you must have known you were related to Naruto. Why hadn't you spoken to him yet? This is hardly the place for a family reunion. Sora just closed his eyes. Maybe not, he said with a hint of sadness in his voice. But to someone who has never had a family, I doubt that the setting really matters too much. No, he added, shaking his head, it's better to meet him this way than as some random strangers introducing themselves as your clanmates from another village. I see, Kakashi said quietly. A sad expression flickered across Sora's face. This seems important to you for some reason. You may be his teacher, but it's only been a week. Why would you be so concerned about him? He looked Kakashi in the eye. Is it because he's a Jinchuriki? Kakashi froze, staring in surprise at the man. You know about that? Sora nodded solemnly. It doesn't take long to learn that the village treats him very poorly. After learning that, it wasn't too difficult to learn the reason why. So he continued, I can see why you may be concerned about him because of the Kyuubi, but... No, Kakashi interrupted, shaking his head. That's not why. There was little I could do to help him directly as he was growing up. There were so many rules because of the Kyuubi, but I owe it to someone to look after him. I actually requested to be his teacher for that reason as well. Sora's eyes widened slightly. I didn't know that, he said softly. Kakashi noticed the reaction, and spoke hurriedly. That isn't why I asked you two to come see my genin, however, he said, trying to clarify his intentions. Make no mistake, I was being sincere when I asked you two to come here. Before I spoke to you, I'd heard that he had failed the academy exam and wouldn't be able to become a genin yet. He looked towards the boy. It wasn't until the next day that I had heard he had passed because of special circumstances, and it was another day after that when I'd heard that I would be his sensei. I apologize, Kakashi-san, for questioning you, Sora said. And I believe you when you say that you were sincere in your invitation, he added. Kakashi relaxed. Don't worry, Sora continued, we will do what we can to help him, regardless of him being a Jinchuriki. Thank you, Kakashi said with sincerity, for doing what I can't. Sora smiled slightly at him. I'd say that you are doing more than you give yourself credit for, Kakashi-san. Sometimes there are just things beyond your control. Besides, as you've said, we're comrades. Even if he weren't a member of my clan, I would be worse than trash if I did not help him. Kakashi smiled as well, noticing the similarity between the line and what he had told his own genin only the week before. There it is again, he thought, that inner strength and spirit. He sounds just like Sensei and Obito did. Truly. Thank you, Sora-san, Kakashi reiterated. Now if only we can figure out a way to help Sasuke and Sakura. Sora chuckled. Only a few minutes and we're their teachers too, now? He teased. Kakashi flushed. I didn't mean to imply. Sora just laughed again. I'm just joking, Kakashi-san. It's fine, we're happy to help. We wouldn't have come otherwise. Besides, he added mischievously, it's been a while since I've seen Naomi have a chance to practice without a bunch of people trying to kill us. Kakashi frowned. Surely wherever you came from can't have been that dangerous? He asked. The man beside him looked away, his eyes dark. It was, he stated simply. Kakashi inwardly cursed his mistake and changed the subject. So what will she do? He asked, noticing that neither Sasuke nor Naomi had moved. Sora looked towards the two, distracted from his thoughts, and smirked. You'll see, he said, an edge of amusement to his voice. Kakashi nodded and turned his attention to the fight. Well? Sasuke asked, obviously impatient. Are you going to do anything? You've just been standing there for the past few minutes ignoring me with that stupid smile on your face. Naomi gave him an innocent look, still smiling as she folded her arms. What are you talking about? She asked. I started a while ago. Hey, Naomi! Sora called loudly from across the clearing. Make sure that everyone can see, all right? I will, she called back to him. What's he talking about? Kakashi thought to himself. As if on cue, he heard a low rumbling noise as the ground began to shake and the sky grew dark. He saw shadows moving from behind the trees and began to notice even stranger noises. Then something stepped into the clearing. A terrible, grotesque monster shambled into the field. It was nearly 8 feet tall, with 3 arms and 4 legs. Its patchy red and black skin flaking off as it walked. This thing's face was terrifying, its skin was pulled tight against its skull, as if the bones were struggling to get out, and in the center of its forehead was a single, bloodshot eye. The worst part was the noise. That awful, grating, moaning noise it made as it moved slowly towards Sasuke. And then more of them emerged from the trees. Kakashi counted 10 of them, each terribly disfigured and monstrous in a different way. All 3 of his genin were frozen in place, obviously disturbed by the sight. Sasuke backed away a few steps. What the hell are these things? He cried. He didn't wait for an answer, instead jumping up and attacking them with balls of fire. Kakashi let out a low whistle. So this is what you meant by letting everyone see genjutsu, I'm guessing? I've never seen summons quite so horrific. Yeah, Sora confirmed, nodding. It's genjutsu. Kakashi watched as Sasuke continued to attack the seemingly unstoppable monsters. This looks like a pretty complex genjutsu, he commented. She's even having them move when he attacks them, as if they're actually real. And to make it so all of us can see it as well, she must be very skilled. Sora grinned. Naomi's genjutsu, he said, she knows the normal things of course, misdirection, confusion, stealth, but this sort of thing is what she's best at. Monsters, fear, nightmares, worse things, he trailed off. To be honest, she's being pretty nice if this is the worst she's going to use. Really? Kakashi said, impressed. I can only think of one other genjutsu specialist that could match something like this. A genjutsu specialist? Sora laughed, earning a look of confusion from Kakashi. Sorry, I should have mentioned this before. Naomi's specialty isn't genjutsu, it's taijutsu. What? Kakashi asked, dumbfounded. For her to be this skilled at genjutsu, without it being her specialty, he regained his composure. That's amazing, he said honestly. Sora chuckled quietly. Isn't it? She's so good at genjutsu that when she actually gets serious and starts using her taijutsu, well, let's just say most people don't even have the chance to be surprised. Sasuke made a mistake when he challenged her by himself. You're right, Kakashi commented quietly as he watched Sasuke continue to struggle. Sasuke wasn't the only one. I could tell she was strong and still I managed to underestimate her myself, he thought. Sasuke landed away from the illusory monsters, panting heavily. This can't possibly be real, he muttered. This has to be an illusion. Naomi smirked at him. I was waiting for you to figure it out. But just because you know it's an illusion doesn't mean you can stop it. Release! Sakura yelled from the side as she made a hand seal. I'm impressed that one of you already knows how to break genjutsu, but I'm afraid that won't work, Naomi said, shaking her head. My techniques are too powerful to be broken that easily, even if this one happens to be a bit clunky and obvious. Who cares? Sasuke yelled, glaring at the woman. If this is an illusion, it can't hurt me, and without your tricks, you're nothing. Naomi just sighed. If I wanted to actually hurt you, I'd have done more than make you see fake monsters. Then you should have done that before. One might have had a small chance at surprising me, Sasuke said arrogantly. He jumped up, forming hand seals. Katan, great fireball! He yelled, a torrent of flame escaping his mouth. Naomi waited calmly, watching as the attack came closer to her. Sasuke's fireball crashed into the ground, but when the smoke dissipated, she was gone. Where did she go? Sasuke asked, looking around wildly. Suddenly, Kakashi's sense of sight disappeared, and everything became pitch black. After half a second, his vision returned, the monsters had disappeared, and the clearing looked as if nothing had happened. Then there was Naomi, her palm extended outward, as Sasuke fell away from her towards the ground. Lesson number 1, she stated calmly, unless you want to die, never underestimate your opponent. Sasuke groaned, lying on the ground in shock. She beaten in just one attack? He realized in disbelief. How could this have happened? She's just a genin, isn't she? Sasuke-kun! Sakura yelled out, running over. Are you okay? Naruto just stood to the side, laughing. Serves you right, bastard. How? Sasuke croaked, ignoring his teammates. How are you so strong? You said you were weak. Naomi kneeled down beside him. I said I was too weak to protect what I wanted to, she corrected him, smiling sadly. But I didn't say that I wasn't strong. Sasuke, with a bit of trouble, pushed himself up and looked away from her. You're stronger than me, he admitted. You're just a genin, but still, I couldn't beat you. Actually, Kakashi said, walking over to him with Sora at his side, they're only genin because they just joined our village. They're both easily as strong as most of the jonin in the village, if not more. I would have explained that if you had been willing to actually listen for more than 5 seconds. Sasuke's eyes widened. What? He asked in surprise. Naomi smirked at him. Sora told you not to underestimate me, Sasuke-kun. You should be careful when you make assumptions about people. Sasuke looked down. I guess she has a point, he thought to himself. I don't want to admit it, but I made a mistake. I never stood a chance. His spirits dampened further, as another thought came to him. I believe Sensei when he says that you're as strong as a jonin. He paused for a moment. Still, you said that you were too weak to do what you wanted. If you're that strong and still can't accomplish your ambitions, then how am I supposed to? Do I have to become even stronger than you? There is more to accomplishing a goal than strength and ability, Sasuke-kun, she told him, expression softening. You said that you didn't need your teammates to help you and that they would only drag you down, but you will learn that there are times when you can't accomplish your goals by yourself. I can't promise that you will always succeed if you work with them, but if nothing else, you stand a better chance fighting with allies than you would fighting alone. She turned, smiling at her husband. That's one of the reasons we came to your village. We couldn't accomplish our goals on our own, but with allies maybe we'll have the chance to make things right. I see, Sasuke said, turning to look at his teammates. I still don't think I need them, he thought to himself, but maybe I should at least give them one chance. Sensei did say something similar. What? Naruto complained loudly. Work with that bastard? Why should I? Naruto-kun? Naomi interrupted, turning towards him with a hint of exasperation in her voice as if she had dealt with his antics many times before. This applies to both you and Sakura-san as well. You must all learn to work together. But he... Naruto-kun, she interrupted again, an edge to her voice. Would you like to see more monsters? He fumbled. No? Then at least consider what I say before dismissing it, she said, a hint of mischief in her eye. Okay, he grumbled in annoyance. So are you all right, Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked, holding her hand out to help him up. I don't need, he started to say, before remembering the lesson that had just been beaten into him. He sighed and took her hand. I mean, thanks. I'm fine. Sakura beamed at him, and began to talk about how well he had done and that he would definitely win the next time. Sasuke groaned, but out of the corner of his eye, he could see Naomi smiling slightly at him. They stayed for a few hours longer, fulfilling Kakashi's request and actually helping the young genin in their training, rather than simply fighting them. After the scheduled time ended and his students began to file away, Kakashi invited them to come back whenever they wanted, seeming rather pleased about the day's events. Thank you, Hinata, Sora said, using her real name after they had walked out of earshot. For what? Teaching your younger self some manners? Naomi teased. He pouted. I don't think he's that bad. That's only because you barely have any manners yourself, she said with amusement. Just one of the many things I love about you. It was a nice change of pace from the stuffiness of my clan, she added, wrinkling her nose. Still, that doesn't mean he couldn't still stand to learn a few of them earlier than you did. He let out a light chuckle. Thanks, I think. Anyway, he said, trying to get back on track. Sasuke-kun? She asked. He nodded in confirmation. Honestly, I'd expected that you would have been the one to talk to him since you know him better than I do. He just dismissed us so quickly. I guess I just thought that I was in the better position to bait him into a challenge. No, he said, you did the right thing. I really had planned on handling Sasuke myself, but I think you might have taught him things in a way that was better than I ever could have. You're wrong, she told him. Though I appreciate the compliment, you would have done at least as well as I did getting through to him, just in your own way. Besides, I'm sure you'll get your chance. He's not going to change overnight, so he'll probably need a push in the right direction from time to time. She paused. I'm not sure I'll ever be able to really trust him, not after seeing what he was capable of, but maybe there is a bit of hope for him. There is, Sora affirmed. He redeemed himself before when he saved me and B. He's a good person. I'll just make sure he doesn't have to prove it this time. That aside, Naomi said, switching topics, I'm glad you convinced me to go. If nothing else, it was nice to see Sakura-san and Kakashi-sensei again. He nodded. It was. It's been a long time since he trailed off. Anyway, I'm happy with the way things went too. Naomi let the conversation lapse and they continued to walk for a few more minutes. Suddenly Naomi smiled. I was wondering when he'd show up. You do know, she called, that we've already noticed you, right, Naruto-kun? They turned, watching as Naruto dropped from a nearby tree. Hi, he said, rubbing the back of his head in embarrassment at being caught. Guess I still need to practice my stealth more. That and you're trying to follow the two people who know you best, she thought, suppressing a laugh. You know that you don't have to try to sneak up on us, Sora said to him. Sorry, he said, looking down, I didn't mean to be rude. It's a habit I picked up to get around easier. Less people. A shadow flickered across Sora's face. It's okay, he said quietly, I know what you mean. Anyway, Naomi said, steering the conversation in a different direction, was there something you needed? I thought you left with Sasuke-kun and Sakura-san. Sort of. I didn't want to ask in front of the others, but Naruto paused. Well, I didn't even know that I had a clan, so I wanted to know if I could just talk with you sometime. It's okay if you don't want to, he added hurriedly. I'd understand, you barely know me. Naruto-kun, Naomi said comfortingly, resting her hand on his shoulder, even if we don't know each other yet, you are family. We would be happy to spend time with you. Family, Naruto whispered quietly, longing in his voice. He looked down. I don't want to lie to you though. Almost everyone in the village hates me because he struggled with his words. That, Sora interrupted, does not matter to us. But You are no monster, Naomi reassured him. You know, Naruto said in astonishment. Then he hugged her. Thank you, he said softly. Naomi looked over at her husband and saw him smiling slightly. My Naruto, she thought, you endured so much loneliness and sadness, yet still you became the best person I've ever known. Naruto pulled away, eyes a little wet, beaming at her. Sorry. She smiled at him, and he still bounces back just as quickly as I remember. I'm glad for that, she thought with amusement. How about you come have dinner with us? Our apartment isn't too far away from here. Sure, Naruto said happily. Naomi-chan? Sora called out suspiciously. She looked over and saw the expression on his face, causing her to sigh theatrically. Fine, she said, rolling her eyes. We can make ramen. Yes. Sora and Naruto yelled with delight. Follow me, Sora told Naruto before racing away. Naruto cheered and ran after him. Some things never change, she thought. Watching them leave, Naomi just shook her head and casually walked after them, a bounce in her step. You're going to be okay, Naruto promised. The woman smiled faintly at him. It's too late for me, she whispered. No, he shouted. Damn it, don't give up now. She chuckled quietly. I'm not sure I have a choice anymore. Hinata will be here soon, he pleaded. Please just stay with me, he cried. She reached out to hold his face in her hand. It's okay, she whispered. She perked up. I have an idea. You asked me once if I knew a way for you to become stronger. Better. I didn't think of it then, But now I know how. What the hell are you talking about? He yelled. A small smile came to her face. Take this, she said, gesturing towards her left eye. What? Let me see the end of this nightmare with my own eyes, she whispered. Her eyelids fluttered and began to close. Hanabi! Sora woke up in a cold sweat. Another nightmare? Naomi asked after a moment, rolling over to look at him. Apparently he'd woken her. He nodded. Sora had been having nightmares for years. Even the past 10 days they had spent in the past had been unable to soften his memories. His sister-in-law's death a month and a half ago only made them worse. It was Hanabi this time, he said quietly. The day she died. No, Naomi said adamantly, as if reading his thoughts. Naruto, I've told you before that it was not your fault. But. No buts, she said. My sister chose to die protecting you because she believed in you. She wouldn't want you to blame yourself. Sora felt horrible, but he felt even worse for his wife. She'd lost the last member of her family, and still she tried to comfort him. Stop thinking stupid things, Naomi reiterated, it was not your fault. Just hold me. Please. He complied, holding on to Naomi without another word. Neither said anything as they both drifted off into sleep once again. Sora walked down the street, lost in his thoughts. Though he was still shaken by his nightmare from the previous night, his wife's words had helped him to feel better, even if only a little. Besides, he told himself, she's not gone. No one is anymore. He shook his head to clear his mind, and then looked to his right towards his companions. He couldn't help but crack a small smile at the sight. Sora's younger self was babbling happily to Naomi, while she cheerfully laughed and nodded at whatever he happened to be saying. Naruto had enjoyed having dinner with them the day before and had asked if they would spend time with him again, to which they readily agreed. Therefore, it was of little surprise when he'd come barreling towards their apartment straight after his training had finished early for the day. I have to admit, I was a bit worried that Hinata wouldn't be able to stand the younger me for very long. I remember that I had a knack for getting on people's nerves, Sora thought. But honestly, she looks like she's enjoying herself as much as he is. Hey! Hey! Naomi Mizan! Naruto said loudly. Yes, Naruto-kun? She answered, taking the new honorific in stride. You two are married, right? Aren't you supposed to have rings? That's a weird question, especially coming from him, Sora mused. We do have rings, he cut in a way, at least. He held his hand close to Naruto, showing him his ring finger. In the place where a ring would usually be was an intricate green tattoo that wrapped around the whole of his finger. The design shimmered and danced. It almost seemed like it was constantly flowing in a circular motion. Naomi held her hand out as well. Her tattoo was identical to Sora's except that instead of green it was red. It seemed to glow in the light, and looked as if it was burning. The pair of tattoos was one thing that neither had changed with their transformations. Naruto looked back and forth between their two hands before pulling back and scratching his head. I don't see them, he said in confusion. The rings are the tattoos, Naruto-kun, Naomi informed him. We don't have actual rings. Those could get in the way during a fight. Besides, where we come from we didn't have enough metal to spare on anything other than weapons. Oh, Naruto said, finally understanding. His face lit up, those are so cool. How do they do that? You mean the way mine looks like it's moving? Sora asked. It's because we used a special ink that changes based on chakra affinity. These tattoos take on some of the aspects of your natural affinity. Well, ours do at least, he added. Some people just create a false effect to try and throw off their enemies, which basically does nothing but guarantee that no one pays them much attention to begin with. What's a chakra affinity? Naruto asked. It's sort of complicated, Naomi said. Basically it's the element that comes most naturally to you. For example, someone with a water elemental affinity will be able to cast stronger water jutsu more easily. Everyone has at least one affinity, though a small amount of people have more. Whoa, Naruto said, I want to learn mine. I'm sure Kakashi-san would be happy to teach you how to test yourself when you're ready, Sora said. I just hope he can learn it earlier than I did. So many things happened so fast last time that Sensei never even got the chance to teach me about elemental affinity until long after he should have. If it comes to that again, I'll probably just teach him myself. Anyway, Naruto-kun, why are you so interested in our rings? Don't you think that you're a bit young to be wondering about something like that? Naomi asked him with curiosity. Well, I'm going to marry Sakura-chan one day, and if I want to beat that bastard Sasuke, I need to learn all I can right now, Naruto answered with a large grin. Sora's eyes widened slightly. Oh shit, he cursed to himself, this is bad. He glanced over towards Naomi. I see, she answered with a grin, humoring the boy. That's great, Sora added, starting to get nervous. As they continued walking, Sora noticed Naomi hide her hands in her sleeves. Please, please, please let her not be angry, he thought desperately. Are you okay, Sora-Nizen? You look a little sick, commented Naruto. I am alright, he lied. Just as they rounded into an empty street, the sky above him appeared to grow dark, though either of his companions seemed to notice. Sora stopped walking and began to back away slowly. Naruto and Naomi kept walking, apparently having failed to see him stop. An exact copy of his wife appeared in front of him, flanked by a large grotesque monster on either side of her. She started to crack her knuckles, an annoyed expression on her face. I'm sorry? Sora said meekly. The copy of Naomi raised her fist. Sora held his hands in front of his face and closed his eyes. He waited a few moments for the onslaught to hit him. It never came. He opened one eye slightly. He saw that the sky was back to normal and the monsters were gone. The copy flicked him on the nose and giggled. Sorry, Naruto, she said, still laughing. Once I saw your face, I just couldn't help myself. You should know by now that I wouldn't hold what your younger self says against you. The copy smirked, most of the time. The illusion broke and the copy of his wife faded away. Sora-Nizen? Naruto asked in confusion, are you alright? You were acting strange for a few seconds, Sora, Naomi added. Her expression was worried, but her eyes had a playful gleam in them. Sora knew she was trying hard not to burst out laughing. He let out a relieved sigh and walked back to the two. I'm fine, he said, I was just a little distracted for a second. It's fine, Naomi assured him, smiling slightly. Not a bad prank, he thought, I guess I've rubbed off on her more than I thought. They continued to walk aimlessly through the village. They passed through the main shopping district and began to walk towards what looked like a park. Unsurprisingly, Naruto had kept talking the entire time. Hey! Sora-Nizen, I still haven't seen you fight yet. Naomi-Nizen is amazing, are you as strong as her? Naruto asked. Sora pondered the question for a moment. We're about equal in skill and ability, he said truthfully. We are when I don't have Kurama's power, at least, he thought ruefully. I'm a bit stronger, but she has more finesse would be a good way to describe it. We haven't sparred in a while, but it's usually close whenever we do. Wow! You've got to help me train again, Naruto said excitedly. Naomi smiled warmly at him. I'm sure we'll fin. She paused, stopping in her tracks. Naruto and Sora stopped as well. Is something wrong? Sora asked. She shook her head. Just a moment. Naomi walked forward a few more steps and stopped in front of a tree. What's she doing? Sora thought, puzzled. Then, for some reason, she bowed before it. My name is Uzumaki Naomi, she told the tree. She then gestured towards Sora, and that is my husband, Uzumaki Sora. It's a pleasure to meet you. Before Sora could open his mouth to question her, the tree shimmered and fell away. In its place stood a red-eyed woman, along with a young girl with stark white eyes, who was hiding behind her. He smiled. I guess that answers that question. The woman smirked, looking impressed, before she bowed as well. I am Yuhi Kurenai. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. Kurenai was surprised that this woman had managed to notice her genjutsu at all, let alone so quickly. Kakashi was right, she decided she is good. If I didn't know better, I'd think that she'd seen my techniques before. Kurenai had gone out for drinks the previous night with Asuma, Guy, and Kakashi, who was, of course, late. While they had often met like this in the past simply to socialize, the gatherings now allowed them to speak with each other about the progress of their students. It especially helped to talk to Guy, when he wasn't ranting about something, since he'd been a sensei for just over a year. Last night, however, Kakashi had mentioned that he'd met two intriguing ninja who just joined the village. Usually she wouldn't have given them much thought, but they'd seemed to impress Kakashi, which was something that Kurenai had rarely seen. What most intrigued her, though, was the woman whom Kakashi mentioned was a genjutsu user. There were very few genjutsu users in Konoha, and the idea of meeting another excited her. When she had noticed the pair walking towards her, she couldn't help herding Hinata to the side and testing the silver-haired woman. Though Kakashi did say that her specialty was in taijutsu. For her to be this skilled in genjutsu as well is amazing. She looked from the woman to the red-haired man and the young genin beside them. Ah, she thought, I'm glad to see that they're treating Naruto well, he could probably use the support. I'll make sure to mention it to Kakashi the next time I see him. A genjutsu specialist, I take it? The woman asked, interrupting Kurenai's thoughts. Kurenai nodded. Kakashi mentioned you two to a few of us last night, so I've been keeping an eye out for you too, though I didn't expect to meet you so soon. I was interested in meeting a fellow genjutsu master, she admitted. I'm not sure I'd call myself a master, Naomi objected. Kurenai smiled. From what Kakashi has said, you aren't giving yourself enough credit. Naomi gave her a wistful, almost sad, look. I suppose you would know. What do you mean? Kurenai asked, somewhat confused. Nothing, she said quietly. She cocked her head to the side. And who might this be? She asked, changing the subject. Kurenai looked behind herself, seeing that Hinata had not yet moved out of her hiding place. At this question, the younger girl poked her head out to the side. Hey Hinata-chan! Naruto greeted loudly. Eep! Hinata squealed, ducking her head back behind her teacher. Hi Naruto-kun, she said quietly. Oh right, I'd forgotten about that, Kurenai thought with amusement. This is Hyuga Hinata, she told them, stepping to the side so that Hinata was in view. We just finished training for the day and I was taking her with me to the shopping district. Naomi started when she saw Hinata, disturbance flickering across the woman's features. I'm sorry, Hinata said sullenly, bowing her head, it's the eyes. Most people think they look creepy. To her credit, Naomi recovered quickly. Before Kurenai could reassure her student, Naomi simply knelt down and rested a hand on the girl's shoulder. It is I who needs to apologize, Hinata-san, she said in a comforting tone, causing Hinata to look up in surprise. There is nothing wrong with your eyes and you should never let anyone tell you otherwise. She seemed to hesitate for a moment before forging onward. I'd befriended some of your clanmates in my time, and seeing a pair of Byakugans simply reminded me of the friends I'd lost. It is nothing you are at fault for. I am sorry for making you feel otherwise. Hinata pushed her fingers together and nodded. It's okay, she said quietly, accepting the apology. Thank you, she added. Naomi smiled at the girl and stood again, turning to face Kurenai. You've met members of the Hyuga clan? Kurenai asked, a bit nonplussed. More than you might think, Naomi responded, looking away from her. Full of surprises indeed, she mused. I wonder how a traveling shinobi without a village managed to befriend members of the Hyuga clan. So, said Sora, speaking for the first time, I understand that you wanted to meet with Naomi, but was there anything else you wanted from us? Kurenai shook her head. Not in particular, she said, though I will extend the same offer as Kakashi regarding meeting my students. She focused on Naomi. You managed to make an impression on that idiot, and you seem interesting for some reason. Then she smiled, especially for Genin. Sora chuckled, we aren't going to hear the end of that until we're promoted, will we? Kurenai laughed in response, probably not. She looked down to her side to see Hinata watching the pair intently. So you're from the Uzumaki clan? Hinata asked the couple with curiosity. I didn't know there were any in the village other than Naruto-kun, though her voice was still quiet. Kurenai was sure she heard an inkling of disapproval in her tone. It's not much of a surprise she'd be a little upset. I wonder if she's even realized how protective she is of that boy yet. There weren't until just recently, Kurenai clarified. They arrived less than 2 weeks ago to join the village. I'm not surprised you hadn't heard yet. Oh, Hinata murmured, shrinking in on herself. Kurenai guessed that she felt guilty for judging them so quickly. Aren't they cool? I just met them yesterday. Naruto exclaimed, drawing everyone's attention. You've got to see them, Hinata-chan, they're amazing. Naomi Nizan showed that bastard Sasuke when she beat him yesterday. Naomi looked down slyly at him. You do know I could beat you just as easily, right? She asked, a bit of exasperation in her voice. I'd still last longer than Sasuke, though, he declared, laughing confidently. I've got an idea. We should all train together, it'd be great. What do you think, Hinata-chan? Hinata started to redden at the sudden question. I think that's a wonderful idea, and Naruto-kun, she said, stuttering slightly. She looked up towards Kurenai, obviously nervous, as long as Kurenai-sensei says it's okay. I suppose it can't hurt, Kurenai answered Hinata. I was considering having you three train with Team 10 soon anyway. I'll speak with Kakashi about it. She turned her attention to Sora and Naomi, who both clearly found the situation to be very entertaining. Seeing as how Kakashi and I have both offered you an invitation, you two would be free to come if you wish. If we actually end up going through with this idea, I'm sure Naruto will be happy to tell you when and where to meet us. Right. Naruto affirmed. Naomi smiled. I'm sure we can find the time if we're in the village. Kurenai looked at the two children. Naruto was grinning hugely, while Hinata looked as if she was mortified that he was even speaking to her. So different what she sees in that boy, I'll never know. Konoha will be a hole in the ground before she'd ever admit it to him, though. God knows he's too dense to notice it himself. She shook her head, returning her attention to the conversation at hand. We have to leave soon, but I should probably warn you. As I said before, Kakashi mentioned you to a few of us instructors. I wouldn't be surprised if you ran into Asuma. If nothing else, he'll probably looking for you just because he wants something to do. But the one you really need to watch out for is… She was cut off as a flash of movement caught her eye, a green blur that streaked towards Sora's back. In the fraction of a second before the impact, the first thought that flashed through Kurenai's mind was that the blur was moving much faster than it usually did. There was no way the red-haired man would be able to react in time to dodge, even if he had noticed the attack. Dynamic entry! Guy's loud voice bellowed. Just before Sora was hit, though, something happened. Somehow the man was simply out of Guy's path in the blink of an eye. Guy continued forward, impacting the ground and creating a small crater where Sora had once been standing. There was a short moment of silence, a slight breeze in the air. What did he just do? Kurenai thought, dumbfounded. Ha! Impressive. You must be overflowing with youth to have dodged my magnificent attack. I have been searching for you, Sora-san, Naomi-san, Guy said loudly. A what? Sora asked, confusion evident on his face. The one you really need to watch out for is Guy, Kurenai finished with a sigh. Greetings, Guy said, ignoring her warning. My name is Mato Guy, Konoha's sublime green beast of prey. He gave a thumbs up, beaming at them. I think he's wondering why you attacked him, Guy, not who you are, Kurenai said with irritation. Ah, Kurenai. You found them before me? I must do 10,000 push-ups to make up for this loss. What are you talking about? This isn't a contest, Kurenai said in frustration. What an idiot, she thought. Of course it's not, Guy proclaimed, but if I had better fanned my flames of youth I would have found them much earlier than now. There was another moment of silence before Naomi spoke up. Why were you looking for us? Ah, yes, Guy said with a laugh. You have gained the respect of my eternal rival Kakashi. You have even helped to train his students. I must not fall behind him. Therefore, I must pit the flames of my youth against yours. Naomi hesitated. That makes no sense at all. Guy, Kurenai snapped, what the hell is wrong with you? Can't you at least try to be polite? It's fine, Kurenai-san, Sora said with a grin. He wants a fight, right? It's been a while since I've had a chance to spar with someone, so I don't mind. If you are sure, she said, relenting. Perfect. Guy exclaimed happily, you are truly within your springtime of youth. Let us do battle in the park down the road, he said, pointing towards the end of the street. Guy ran towards the park without another word, Sora walking leisurely behind him. Wait! Naruto yelled, running after them, I want to watch. Kurenai looked towards Naomi with a sigh. I apologize for Guy's eccentricities. Are you sure it's okay? It's fine, the woman assured her. He was telling the truth when he said he didn't mind. Honestly, I think he'll enjoy the chance to practice. If you say so, Kurenai replied. Still, the way he moved out of Guy's attack, what was that? Naomi grinned at her. It's hard to explain. I know you and Hinata-san were about to leave, but if you have the time, I'm sure you'd find this fight interesting. Kurenai looked to the girl beside her. Hinata? She asked, do you want to watch? Hinata started, having been watching Naruto so closely that she hadn't expected the question. She glanced up at Kurenai, then back towards the young boy. I don't mind going, Kurenai-sensei, she said quietly. Kurenai nodded to Naomi. Well then, let's go see what your husband can do. As Kurenai and the others arrived, they decided to stand off to the side, next to where Naruto was. She noticed that the match had still yet to begin. Sora was simply standing a short distance away from Guy, watching as he did one-handed push-ups. I figured you three would want to watch, Sora remarked casually to the girls. Are you ready? He asked, turning to face Guy. Of course. Before we begin, I should warn you, if you don't take off those weights of yours, I'm not sure you'll be able to keep up. Guy gave a hearty laugh. So you noticed those? Thank you, but I must decline. I only allow myself to remove these weights during missions or when I must protect something important. If I am unable to match your speed, it only means I must train harder. Sora smiled slightly, inclining his head. As you wish. Kurenai looked to Naomi. I don't mean to be rude, but does Sora-san know what he's gotten into? Even with his weights on, Guy is one of the fastest ninja within our village. To her surprise, Naomi just shook her head. He's not boasting. I doubt Guy will be able to keep pace with him too. Really now? She asked, though she was still skeptical. A breeze began to blow through the park. Let's see if you can outrun the wind, Sora challenged. The breeze picked up, and Sora rocketed towards Guy at an incredible speed. Though the attack was sudden, Guy smoothly shifted his stance to counter the man's attack. Just as Sora came within striking distance, Kurenai noticed the same strange movement as before. Without even sidestepping, Sora flickered to Guy's right and brought around his leg in a roundhouse kick that swiftly thundered towards his opponent. Guy was caught off guard and was barely able to move his arms in time to block. Still, the kick connected and sent Guy rocketing into a nearby tree. What? Was all Kurenai could say at the sight. Naomi shrugged. Sora did warn him. Guy recovered, shooting back towards Sora. Leaf whirlwind! Guy shouted. Sora blocked the attack, but before Guy could follow up, Sora shifted to Guy's side again, hitting him with another kick, though Guy was able to keep from being thrown back this time. How is he doing this? Kurenai asked in astonishment. You should have felt it by now, Naomi commented. Kurenai frowned for a second, thinking. Then her eyes widened once she noticed what was happening. The wind, she said quietly. It's acting oddly. Naomi nodded. The breezes you notice are the after effects of the technique he's using. Sora uses wind to augment his movements. He constantly generates a tailwind which pushes against his body, increasing his overall speed. He also uses the wind to speed up his arms and legs when he's attacking, which is why his attack speed is so quick. She paused, watching as Sora landed a combo of punches. In addition, Naomi added, he can use the technique in short bursts to move at a very high speed for a fraction of a second. When he shifts to the side without having to take a step, it's because he's using a gust of wind to maneuver himself, though the bursts are too tiring for him to constantly use them. He calls the technique wind walking. Sora and Guy might be about even in their regular movement speeds right now, but with his weights on, Guy has no chance of keeping up with Sora's wind bursts or his attack speed. During the explanation, the battle continued to rage on, with Sora still being able to dodge the majority of Guy's attacks. During a brief lull in the fight, Kurenai responded. I've never even heard of something like that before. Not with the wind element, at least. She turned her gaze on the woman still. Should you even trust me enough to explain his technique in such detail? We've only just met. Unexpectedly, the woman smiled slightly. Perhaps not, but something tells me that you're trustworthy. Besides, it's not as if wind walking is the only trick up his sleeve. Kurenai nodded, noticing Sora dodge another attack with a burst of wind and produce a pair of knives. I just can't believe it. I've never seen anyone with that much control over an element before. He's one of a kind. I, myself, barely have half as much control over fire that he has over wind. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. So you have a fire affinity? For you to counter your husband's wind fate has a sense of humor, it seems. Naomi chuckled. I've had people tell me that before, but I think you're looking at it the wrong way, she said. After a puzzled look from Kurenai, Naomi continued, it's odd, you know. Wind dissipates lightning, lightning obliterates earth, earth impedes water, and water extinguishes fire, but fire? Fire does not fight against the wind, it is simply made stronger by it. Much in the same way that my Sora strengthens me. I never thought of it that way, Kurenai told her with a smile. Her attention was brought back to the fight with a crackle of lightning. Right-on, thunder slash! Sora cried. 2 large arcs of lightning generated by his daggers streaked through the air towards Guy. Guy was able to dodge the attack and close in on Sora. Leave strong whirlwind! He yelled. The attack connected, managing to throw Sora backwards. Before he went too far, however, he suddenly decelerated, thanks to his burst of wind, only a few meters away from Guy. You are very skilled, Guy complimented his opponent. I can see how my eternal rival was inspired by your youth. Sora let out a laugh, grinning in excitement. You're, very youthful too, Guy-san. I haven't had this much fun in a while, he said. Actually, how about we start taking this a bit more seriously? Sora sheathed his right dagger and raised his hand, chakra beginning to gather in his palm. Sora! Naomi interrupted, causing him to freeze. What do you think you're doing? She asked as she walked over to him. The man's hand dropped, his technique fading away. Getting to the good part? He asked sheepishly. Perhaps, Naomi said exasperatedly, we should try to avoid destroying this park or maiming each other for today? An attack that she was worried about being used on Guy. Considering how strong his normal attacks were, whatever that technique was must have been powerful, Kurenai thought, becoming even more curious about the man's abilities than she'd been during his fight. Sorry, he apologized, seeming to notice the destruction the fight had begun to cause for the first time. I guess I started to get a little carried away. Naomi sighed. I think you two are done for the day. If you start fighting seriously, you'll destroy buildings. You make a good point, Naomi-san. Do not worry, Sora-san. I'm certain that your next technique would have burned with the flames of youth had we not been forced to stop, Guy said. I am sorry, but now that our match has concluded I shall take my leave. I must do 10,000 push-ups to make up for my loss against Kurenai. Guy, how many times must I tell you that this is not a contest? Kurenai shouted in frustration. You must come meet my students as well at some point. Guy continued, ignoring the outburst. I refuse to be beaten by Kakashi. Alright, Sora said, most likely to appease the man. Thank you for the match, Sora-san. He turned to regard Naomi. I look forward to testing the fires of my youth against yours another day, Naomi-san. Guy flashed a final thumbs up and leapt away. After Guy's departure, there's silence for a few seconds before it was broken by a loud Naruto. That was so cool, he said, speaking for the first time since the fight had begun. For her part, Hinata had spent the entirety of the match standing a few meters behind the boy, staring at him every few moments before quickly looking away again. Hinata! Naruto exclaimed, shocking the girl. Isn't Soren amazing? I've never seen anyone fight like that before. Why yes, she replied hurriedly, he's really strong. Too bad he's not strong enough to stop himself from tearing this park down, Naomi interjected, rolling her eyes. Hey, that's not fair. This place is fine, Sora complained. Naomi raised her eyebrow at the man. Mostly fine, he amended. Kurenai just shook her head. For some reason, when that man says things like that, he reminds me of Naruto. I suppose some of that childishness just runs in the family. At least he's not as bad as Guy. God knows we wouldn't survive another villager like him and that protege of his. Kurenai continued to watch the couple bicker playfully for another minute. Once they settled down, Naomi looked at her. I suppose we should part ways now, it's starting to get a bit late. You're probably right, she agreed. Are you ready to go, Hinata? If we hurry, we may still be able to get to the market before the shops start to close. I'm ready, Kurenai-sensei, Hinata said. I've got to go too, Naruto added somewhat regretfully. I have to meet Iruka-sensei at Ichiraku's. He started to run off, but stopped and turned around. I'll see you soon, Soren-san, Naomi-san. Oh, and by Hinata-chan, see you soon too. Bye, and Naruto-kun, Hinata said quietly, while Sora and Naomi gave him a wave of farewell. Kurenai turned to the couple and nodded. Keep my offer in mind. I hope we meet again soon. I'm sure we will, Naomi replied with a smile. And I look forward to it. As Kurenai turned to walk away, her student at her side, she couldn't help but think that she had just made two very interesting friends. So, Kakashi began nonchalantly, switching the topic from their current discussion about their students. I hear two of you met my new friends? The three Jonin had been gathered around a table at one of their favorite haunts for the past 15 minutes. Surprisingly, Kakashi wasn't the last person to arrive, even though he'd arrived half an hour late. He was losing his touch. You mean the Uzumakis, yes? I did, Guy answered with a grin. Sora-san was most impressive. Oh? Did you decide that before or after you spontaneously attacked one of them? Kurenai asked with thinly veiled annoyance. Here we go again, Kakashi thought. She's been complaining about this all night. Guy must have really gotten on her nerves yesterday. I already told you that I simply wanted to test their strength. Were you not doing the same thing yourself, Kurenai-san? Guy responded. Not by nearly taking someone's head off. I saw how much stronger than usual that ridiculous kick of yours was. Kurenai snapped. For God's sake, Guy, if Sora-san had been any less skilled, then you may have actually injured a comrade that you didn't even know. Would it kill you to at least try to act responsibly every once in a while? That he managed to avoid me proves the strength of his flames of youth, Guy stated, nodding sagely. I don't even know what that means. Also, can you please stop talking like that in front of people who don't know you? It might be fine around us, but the Uzumakis probably already think that you're some kind of lunatic after that display of yours. Now, Kurenai-san, Guy said, flashing a thumbs up. I am certain that I have absolutely no idea what you're referring to. There was a glimmer in his eye that Kakashi recognized as amusement. Guy knew full well what his friend was referring to. Why am I friends with you? Kurenai moaned, dropping her face to her hand. I'm never quite sure how much that idiot actually believes what he says, Kakashi thought, sighing inwardly. Sometimes I wonder if it's all just an act so we'll forget how intelligent he is. Or maybe I'm overthinking things and he really is just the smartest fool I'll ever meet. He paused for a moment, him and Naruto, that is, he corrected himself. Everyone's attention shifted suddenly at the sound of footsteps approaching their table. Sorry I'm late, Asuma said, taking the empty seat next to Kurenai. Our mission for the day took longer than I thought it would. Though I did just run into that pair of newcomers that Kakashi's been raving about for the past few days, so it's not all bad. They were on their way to meet with my dad. Probably still have a few more things they need to clear up for their security check. Well, that was quick, Kakashi said offhandedly. I didn't actually expect you three to chase after them. I almost feel bad now. What are you talking about? Asuma asked. Kurenai-san and I have met them as well, Guy answered. What? Asuma asked, clearly surprised. It's only been 2 days since Kakashi mentioned them. What can I say? They're pretty easy to notice, Kurenai said with a shrug. Though, she added snidely, I'm not sure I'd say Guy met them, so much as attack one of them for no reason. I've already said, Guy began before being cut off by a wave from Kakashi. Yes, you were testing the flames of their youth, we know. He rolled his one visible eye, looking at Asuma. They've been at this the whole time, please save me. The man just chuckled. Come on now, he said, turning to the woman, you know what Guy's like. Cut him some slack, I'm sure he didn't mean to actually hurt anyone. Kurenai sighed. I know. I'm mostly just annoyed that he ruined our conversation. I actually like them, so it would be nice if I could try to become friends with them before they lump me in with that man, she finished, glaring at Guy. I think I made a great impression, Guy said proudly, flashing a grin. I'd just settle for them not thinking we're all insane because of you, Kurenai replied, rubbing her temples. Anyway, Kakashi began, forestalling the chance of another exchange, back to our conversation. What did you three think of them? Asuma took a cigarette out of his pocket, lighting it, and taking a drag before speaking. I only had the chance to speak with them for a few minutes, but from what I saw, they seemed relatively normal to me. Relatively? Kurenai asked, cocking an eyebrow. Well, I can't really say why exactly, but there was something different about those two. So he noticed it too, Kakashi thought, rubbing his chin. I got the same impression, but it wasn't until our second meeting that I realized what the feeling came from. They reminded me of some of the veterans from the Third War. Not the younger ones like us, but the older ones, the ones who had taken on the worst missions. Sora-san hinted that wherever they had come from was dangerous, but that just makes me wonder where in the world could be that dangerous these days. Now that you mention it, Kurenai added, Naomi-san said a few things that struck me as odd. She also seemed to have a great deal of trust in me. Comrade or not, it was surprising considering I've only just met her. Kakashi sighed. I told you they were interesting. Still, as long as they don't pose a threat to the village, and I don't think they do, it's not our place to dig into their past. Not when it seems to be so painful for them whenever they mention it. I suppose you're right, Kurenai agreed. Either way, you were correct about their skills, Kakashi. Guy had mentioned something about a test, Kakashi said, remembering what the man had said. Kurenai nodded. Naomi-san was able to see through a genjutsu I'd created. It wasn't my strongest one, but the ease with which she detected it was remarkable. That truly is impressive, Guy interjected. There are few in this village who could counter your ability with genjutsu. I'm not that surprised, Kakashi told them, after seeing her fight. Even if it was only against a fresh genin, I could tell she was talented at genjutsu. Asuma looked at the three of them thoughtfully. Didn't you say that she was a taijutsu specialist, Kakashi? Kakashi nodded. Asuma took another drag from his cigarette. Then we have to assume that she must be even more skilled in that area. If that's the case, she's probably stronger than most of the jonin in our village. For someone that strong to not already belong to a village is rare. Rare for people aren't a missing nin anyway. I think you're right about that, though we can't say for sure until we've really seen her in action. Though I'm curious about Sora-san. They talk as if they're about equal in strength. He's strong, Guy said, his tone gaining a bit of seriousness. Agreed, Kurenai said. How do you know? Kakashi asked, intrigued. I sparred with him, Guy said simply. I thought he was simply underestimating me when he warned me to take off my training weights. After all, even with these weights on, I am one of the fastest ninja in Konoha. He paused. I was wrong about him. We were about equal in speed, but when he attacked and dodged, Guy trailed off. I'm not sure I can explain it, but his movements became incredibly fast for a single moment. It was difficult for me to land my attacks, and I could not always react in time to avoid him. I'm sure that it had something wind chakra, but I couldn't discover anything else in so short a time. Asuma frowned. He has a wind affinity? I've never heard of any wind techniques that work like that. Kurenai nodded. It's true, she confirmed. Naomi-san explained it to me. It has something to do with using wind to increase his attack speed and to move himself short distances in only a few instants. He has that much control? Over wind? Kakashi asked, astonished. Fire, water or earth would be one thing. Keeping tight control over those elements is difficult, but still within the realm of possibility. But to control either wind or lightning to that degree is almost unthinkable. If I'm to take Naomi-san's word for it, then yes, Kurenai replied. Well then, Asuma said, grinning, it sounds like I should talk to this man again. If he can do that, then I'm certain there are at least a few tips I can learn from him for my own wind techniques. My only regret, Guy said, his voice regaining its usual boisterous joviality, was that I could not continue my wonderful bout with Sora-san any longer. Kurenai chuckled. That's because you two idiots would have demolished a park. It's a good thing Naomi-san was there to rein you both in. It sounds like it's just one surprise after another with those Uzumakis. I'm just happy they're joining our side, Kakashi said. As am I, Kurenai said with a smirk. Looks like you showed us something interesting for once, Kakashi. And before you tried to suggest it, no, your disgusting books are not interesting. Guy and Asuma both laughed at him, while he tried to hide his embarrassment. Oh. And Kakashi? Kurenai began. I thought you'd like to know that they're treating Naruto kindly. He already appears to be quite attached to them. Kakashi nodded. Thanks for letting me know, that is good to hear. I was hopeful after talking with them, but I wasn't completely sure whether or not they treat him well, knowing about the Kyuubi. They already know about that? Asuma said with a frown. They do, Kakashi answered. But I suppose it's not too surprising that they learned about it so quickly. It's not as if most of the village is very subtle in their discrimination against him. Sora-san said that once they noticed it, they simply listened in on a few whispers and put the truth together for themselves. So much for the third's law stopping that, Kurenai said with a shrug. I may not always see eye to eye with my father, Asuma said, but I do know that his heart was in the right place. There was little else he could do for Naruto in that situation. We know, Kakashi said reassuringly, no one's to blame, honestly. I may not like how the village treats him, but as much as I hate to admit it, it would be unfair for me to expect for them to not be afraid. Not after the destruction the Kyuubi caused. Hopefully things will become better once they learn to separate Naruto from the demon that's inside of him. He smiled, though it sounds like things are getting better for him already. Kurenai steepled her fingers as she thought. It's not just him though. I had Hinata with me when I ran into them. The way Naomi-san interacted with her was it was unexpected. How so? Guy asked. Well, by her own admission, Naomi-san had some prior acquaintances who were members of the clan, so I'm guessing that she's somewhat familiar with the Hyuga. Even if she isn't, I wouldn't put it past those two to have found out at least some information about some of our more influential clans like the Hyuga, especially if they have history with some of their members. Asuma snuffed out his cigarette before speaking. What are you getting at? Well, I just would have expected Naomi-san or Sora-san to have become excessively polite or respectful to Hinata since she's supposed to be next Hyuga clan head. Perhaps go out of their way to try and make a connection with her for the sake of ingratiating themselves to her family. She paused. They didn't do anything like that. In fact, they didn't even mention it. I don't really see what the problem is, Kurenai. From what you've told us, that girl would hate people acting like that to her, Asuma said, a puzzled look on his face. We know that, but since I sincerely doubt that they followed a 12-year-old around to learn about their personality, they shouldn't know Hinata so well after just meeting her. Kurenai sighed. I'm not saying it's a bad thing or that I'm suspicious of them, it's just odd that Naomi-san was so good at knowing just what to say to her. Even though Naomi-san barely talked to Hinata, the few times that she did, Hinata really seemed to take her words to heart, and part of me envies that ability. I know I've only just started training that girl, but knowing how many problems she has because of how her father treated her well, of all of my students, she's the one that I'm most worried about. I think I'm making a little progress, but I'm just not sure that I'll always know how to help her. That sounds a little like when they knew how to get through to Sasuke, even if it was just a little bit, Kakashi mused. There were a few seconds of silence before Kakashi spoke. Trust me, Kurenai, I understand where you're coming from. Dealing with both Naruto and Sasuke is going to be a challenge, and I'm guessing that Guy and Asuma have their own worries as well. You have to remember that this is a learning process for us too, It's not as if any of us except for Guy even has a clue on how to best teach our students yet. No one's expecting you to change all of your genin overnight, or even to solve all of their problems in the first place. I know, she said, biting her lip. If you think Naomi-san can get through to Hinata, why don't you just ask her for help from time to time? From what I've heard, both of the Uzumakis sound like they're more than willing to help anyone, Asuma suggested matter-of-factly. Asuma has a point, Kakashi said. Ever since he lost to Naomi-san and was lectured, Sasuke seems to be willing to at least consider working with his teammates sometimes. I know that Sora-san had a hand in that plan, so he could probably help you as well. Kurenai shook her head. I've already invited them to train with my students. Anything beyond that seems like an imposition. Please, Asuma scoffed. If you don't ask them for help, I'm sure Kakashi will be more than happy to pawn his students off on them. We all know how lazy he is. I doubt he even shows up to his own practices on time. I resent that accusation, Kakashi told the man. The only reason I'm ever late is because I can't bring myself to ignore a citizen of Konoha in need. Asuma raised an eyebrow at him. Kakashi shrugged. There's a lot of citizens in need. It's not my place to complain about their predicaments. Ha! Guy bellowed, putting an arm around him. I always knew that you were a hero to the people, Kakashi. You truly are a worthy rival. Asuma waved them off. I'm not even going to dignify that with a response, Kakashi. Isn't saying that technically a response? Kakashi asked as he attempted to free himself from Guy's grasp. Smartass, Asuma muttered, turning towards Kurenai. Anyway, Kurenai, there's no harm in just talking to them. I know asking for a favor isn't usually the best way to start a friendship, but I don't think they'll resent you for trying your best to help one of your students. Kurenai looked upwards, blowing out a deep breath. Maybe you're right, Asuma. I don't like it, but I'll think about it. Thanks, she added, smiling as she placed a hand over Asuma's. Then she blushed slightly, taking the hand away. Kurenai, I'm not sure why she's so embarrassed. Does she really think that no one's seen this coming? Kakashi thought, suppressing a laugh. Kurenai cleared her throat, bringing Kakashi out of his reverie. That reminds me, I wanted to discuss some joint training exercises with you three. Kurenai began to ask questions and outline some ideas as they continued to talk into the evening. Sora sat quietly with Naomi in a small lobby, awaiting a meeting with the third Hokage. He was tapping his foot, becoming increasingly restless and fidgety as time went by. Though he'd gotten better over the years, it wasn't in his nature to be patient. In fact, there were only 3 instances wherein he was able to bring himself to be still: when he was on a mission, during a battle, and while he was gathering natural energy. Unfortunately, sitting in a waiting room fit none of those criteria. How much longer is this going to take? He asked aloud. Naomi rolled her eyes at him. You asked that 2 minutes ago. But this is taking forever, he complained. His wife fixed him with a flat stare. It's been 20 minutes, she reminded him, pointing to a clock on the wall. It feels like longer, he replied in annoyance. Would you stop complaining? I'm trying to take a nap, a loud voice rumbled within his mind. Quiet you, he said in his mind, go eat a squirrel or something. If you don't show me some more respect, I'll eat you soon, the fox growled. Humans, he muttered. Naomi just chuckled at Sora, unaware of the exchange. I will always wonder how a grown man that is capable of splitting waterfalls can have so much trouble sitting in a chair. It's because splitting waterfalls is much more entertaining, he joked. She smiled at him. Then her expression became thoughtful, and she hid her hands within her sleeves and looked away. A few seconds later, an exact replica of Naomi appeared before him. Sora had to admit that despite the fact that she might use the technique to tease him occasionally, it was one of the most useful genjutsus that she knew. By casting a genjutsu on him, she would be able to talk to him without any possibility of another person listening in on whatever she had to say. He couldn't respond openly, of course, nor was he skilled enough to reply with a genjutsu of his own, but he could still react to whatever she said with subtle gestures or simple words. Either way, whatever he did would unintelligible to any outside observer on the off chance that they thought the couple was trying to communicate in the first place. That reminds me of something I wanted to tell you, the illusion said. Sora cocked his head slightly in question. I know that we've talked about hiding our Byakugan, but we have to be careful to avoid using some of our other techniques as well, unless it's necessary or possible for us to hide the truth. The last thing we need is to have to explain how we know the Rasengan or Kaiten. That's the main reason why I stopped your fight with Guy yesterday. That's a good point, Sora thought. It's something that we both already knew, but we haven't actually said it out loud until now. Still, Even though it might take me a little while to adapt my fighting style, I'm more worried about Hinata. Her taijutsu style revolves around the use of gentle fist. Without it, I'm sure you knew to be careful already, the apparition reassured him with a smile, as if she had heard his first thoughts. I just wanted to remind you. You have a tendency to go overboard sometimes. He looked over towards the real version of his wife, frowning slightly. The woman met his gaze, and smiled warmly at him. It was the almost exactly same expression that her illusionary self was wearing. Don't worry, the illusion told him confidently, placing a hand over his cheek. I can fight without using the gentle fist. Besides, she added, I'll have you there to help me. Sora watched as the genjutsu faded away. He turned to face Naomi, who was looking at him expectantly. After a moment he grinned slightly, nodding. Her response was to simply reach over and grasp his hand. After a few minutes, however, her grip tightened at the sound of an unexpected voice. Was there any point to that meeting at all, father? A child asked. As the clan head, I am obligated to meet with the Hokage regularly. You should know this by now, an older man informed the child. Of all of the people that could have been here, Sora thought sorrowfully. Hyuga Hayashi and his daughter Hanabi strode into the room as they talked. Thankfully their eyes weren't activated, so there was little chance of them noticing the couple's transformation. Not that there would have been much of a reason for the two Hyugas to have used their Byakugan in the first place. But father, she insisted, wouldn't your time be better spent elsewhere? No, he said firmly. It matters not what I discuss with the Hokage. What is important is that he is reminded that he must keep our clan in mind during all important decisions concerning the village. To ignore that responsibility is to do all of the Hyuga a great disservice. Do you really believe that it's possible that the Hokage would ignore the needs of our clan? Hanabi asked. You would be surprised, Hayashi responded coolly, a hint of annoyance in his tone. The pair walked past Sora and Naomi with barely a glance, though Sora could feel the tension radiating from his wife. She's always so kind and level-headed that sometimes I forget. Just because she doesn't blame me for her sister's death, doesn't mean that she doesn't blame herself for so much more than that. Uzumaki Sora? Uzumaki Naomi? A voice called. Shirani Genma appeared from the hallway leading to the Hokage's office. The Hokage is ready to meet with you now. Naomi rose stiffly before Sora could even think of what to say to her. She quickly brushed past Genma, walking towards the Hokage's office without a word. The third Hokage watched silently as the couple calmly walked into his office. As the door closed, he performed a few hand signs to activate the various seals that would protect his office from eavesdropping and make sure that his guards didn't hear anything they shouldn't. Sarutobi took a deep breath as he watched his guests walk further into the room. Perhaps my worries were misplaced. As soon as she noticed that the seals were activated, Naomi made a hand seal of her own, creating a single shadow clone. Naomi-san, the Hokage began. She ignored him, slamming a palm into the clone's chest before he even had the time to be surprised. The clone flew away from her, disappearing into a cloud of smoke as it crashed into a wall. Hinata, he said worriedly. Sorry, she whispered. Sora looked at her, a sad expression on his face. Or perhaps not, he sighed. My apologies, he began, looking at the pair. I did not mean for you to see your father or sister here. Especially not without warning. I understand that you did not have the best of relationships with them. Naomi scoffed, shaking her head. You misunderstand. I made peace with my father over a decade ago, before that blasted war even began. And Hanabi, she paused, she may seem cold sometimes, but we were never on bad terms with each other. We were always close. Hiruzen simply waited, not wanting to push her. She would say more if she wanted to. Would you have guessed that none of my clanmates would care that I married Naruto? That my father wouldn't? Naomi asked the Hokage, a wistful smile appearing on her face. I wouldn't have. I'll never forget the day I tried to tell my father that I could no longer be his heiress because I was going to marry Naruto. He surprised me when he just calmly looked at me and said, No. You are the best choice and you will be the next leader of the Hyuga. Because of this war, the clan will need you more than ever when I am gone. The woman sighed. I was confused. By the Hyuga's own laws I knew that I was giving up my right to even be considered a member of the clan. I thought that he was trying to change my mind, so I told him that the decision was already made, that there was no point in even trying to argue over it. But he only smiled at me, saying, You should know that the Hyuga have more important concerns right now than antiquated rules or procedures. Who you marry or what you call yourself doesn't matter, you will always be one of us. And you will always be my daughter, Hinata. Never doubt that. Naomi shook her head. He changed a lot by then. More than I would have ever thought possible. and the rest of the clan agreed with his decision. Everyone told me that they had faith in me. She chuckled. The stuffy and inflexible Hyuga clan had just flown in the face of tradition for my sake. I couldn't believe it. She paused for a moment, and her bleak smile faded. Soon after that, my father was killed. I honored his wishes by taking up his position. The woman stopped talking for a moment, mustering the will to keep speaking. She seemed so remorseful, so full of regret, Hiruzen realized as he studied her. He already knew that her story would not end happily. Naomi looked down, but not before the Hokage noticed the tear rolling down her cheek. I was supposed to protect and lead my clan. For years they believed in me, believed that I would make the right decisions, believed that I would save them. In the beginning I thought that I could do it. I thought I could keep them safe. I tried so hard. She covered her face with a hand, voice lowering to a whisper, but I was a fool. Instead I only got them all killed. They trusted me, but all I did was watch as my clan slowly died around me. My sister was just the last in a long line of tragedies. God, I miss her. God, I miss all of them so much. Naomi turned her head to stare up at the ceiling and Sarutobi could see a few small wet streaks staining her cheeks. Then she startled him with a quiet, humorless bark of laughter. It's ironic in a way. I fought in countless dangerous and desperate battles, but I survived. I suffered through years of war, fighting, and death, but I survived. So many mornings I woke up, wondering if that was going to be the day that would finally be my last, but still I survived. Whatever happened, I always managed to survive. But I was the only Hyuga to survive. A clan head without a clan, she finished, voice laced with guilt. No, I'm not angry that I saw my father and sister here, she reiterated firmly, shaking her head. Seeing them just reminded me of all of the mistakes I'd made. Reminded me how wrong my father was to trust me to be his successor, she finished, her expression filled with grief. Sarutobi closed his eyes. He hadn't expected either the information the woman had told him or the desolation that he could hear in her voice. He had had some suspicions, of course, but he had never truly believed that the entire Hyuga clan had been reduced to one person. He wanted to say something to the woman, to help her somehow, but this wasn't a wound that he could heal with a few words. Sora placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. He did not seem at all caught off guard by her words. Evidently, her anguish had been something he was already familiar with. That isn't true. I know you, know how hard you worked to protect your clan. You did everything in your power to help them. There was nothing more you, or anyone else, could have done, he gently assured her. You're the only reason so many of the Hyuga survived so long in the first place. Your clan held together for years longer than many of the others because of you. A worthless consolation for those who died, Naomi spat bitterly. How can you constantly be able to remain objective when looking at the actions and mistakes of others, of me, but still be so unfair when you judge yourself? Sora asked. You have a habit of blaming yourself for everything, of taking responsibility of things you have no control over. This is different, the woman said, voice barely a whisper. The Hyuga were my responsibility, they were my family, but I failed them anyway. It's different, she repeated, though it sounded as if she was talking to herself more than anyone else. She shook her head. I know you mean well, Naruto, but this isn't the time or place for this, and I wouldn't really feel like talking about this anymore even if it was. We have more important things to discuss than my failures anyway, she said solemnly, turning to face Sarutobi. Again, I apologize. Please forgive me, Hokage-sama. The Hokage took a long look at the woman before nodding in agreement. As much as it pained him to admit it, she had a point. If this visit was any indication, there was still much to be done. There is nothing to forgive, Hinata, you did nothing wrong, he told the woman kindly. Now I believe that you two wish to see me? Hiruzen would be lying if he said he wasn't anxious about the request for a meeting. He had only spoken with them twice before, after all. First, when they had just arrived in the village, and another time a few days after that, when the two had come by briefly so that Sora could apologize for the actions of his younger self. Initially, the Hokage had been somewhat annoyed with Sora for his younger self's actions in stealing the scroll of seals, as well as his refusal to stop the occurrence. Despite his annoyance, however, he had come to accept the decision as being the right one. As Sora had pointed out, too many large deviations from his and Naomi's own timeline would run the risk of greatly diminishing the value of any knowledge they might have of future events. Further, by Sora's own admission, the way in which Naruto found out about the demons sealed inside him ended up being one of the most positive and defining events of his life, Mizuki's betrayal notwithstanding. Sora glanced at his wife, clearly still concerned about her. We haven't had the time to really go into detail about what happened in the future, but we decided that if nothing else, we needed to tell you about the events that will happen during the next few months. Just a moment, Sarutobi said, reaching into his desk for his pipe and tobacco. He could already tell that this wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. He lit his pipe then nodded for them to continue. There are two things that we need to talk about. The first is of a more personal nature, Sora began. In the next few weeks, you're going to get a request for a C-rank mission from a bridge builder, asking for an escort and protection while he completes the construction of a bridge in the Land of Waves. Around the same time, my younger self should complain about how Team 7 has had too many D-rank missions and that he wants something more exciting. I want you to give them that mission. Even if my younger self doesn't ask for it for some reason, just make up an excuse to give it to them anyway. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. I take it that something important occurs during this mission? He asked. Sora nodded. As you might guess, it won't go according to plan. The bridge builder lied about the danger of the mission because he couldn't afford anything higher than C rank. He looked away. It turns out the mission is closer to an A rank in difficulty. Our most dangerous opponents were Momochi Zabuza and his apprentice, though we ran into a couple of Chunin along the way. The Hokage looked at him for a few moments before rubbing his eyes. Let me see if I understood you correctly. You want me to knowingly send 3 recently graduated genin on an A-rank mission where they will come into contact with the demon of the hidden mist, one of the deadliest missing nin alive, without even informing them or their teacher of the danger? Yes, Sora said flatly. May I ask why? It was during that mission that I first tapped into Kurama's power. It was also during that mission that Sasuke first activated his Sharingan. Sora hesitated. I won't say that I like having them go in blind when it's avoidable, but do I think it would be better to make sure that those children improve as quickly as possible when we know that Akatsuki is going to try to attack them eventually? Sometimes I hate this job, Hiruzen thought with a sigh. He waved his hand in acknowledgement. Fine. I suppose that when I know what comes next, being overprotective will only do more harm than good. At least Kakashi will be with them, though I have to wonder why he would be foolish enough to let you continue with that mission the second he knew it was going to be more dangerous than he was led to believe. He fixed the man with a stern gaze. You're sure that they'll be fine? To be honest, we were the ones who asked Kakashi-sensei to continue, though I'll admit that I never really understood why he let us go through with it either. Still, I doubt he expected to run into one of the 7 swordsmen. Knowing him, he probably just lied to keep us happy and sent a reinforcements request to the village that was blocked by Zabuza's men or something. As for my squad's safety, Sora shrugged, we were fine when I went on the mission. But since we've already come into contact with Team 7 and some of the other villagers, I can't say that I'm 100% sure. He paused. I won't pretend that I even have the slightest clue exactly how our presence will affect everything. A word here, a chance meeting there for all I know, it will completely change how the team acts when they run into Zabuza, though I doubt we've affected things to that degree. He met Sarutobi's stare with a look of his own. If it makes you feel any better, I'm planning on tailing them. Hinata says that I'll start getting used to this new eye of mine within the next few weeks. I won't have mastered it, but I should be able to keep track of 5 people walking down a road without too much trouble. I see. That does give me some relief. Are you sure you don't want me to just send you along with them officially? Sora shook his head. I'd prefer not to interfere unless it's necessary. Not until I'm sure that Sasuke has activated his Sharingan and my younger self has had his meeting with Kurama, at least. If I'm lucky though, I may be able to stop them from killing Zabuza or Haku. They don't deserve to die, and if nothing else they could be valuable contacts when we try to track down the 6 Tails Jinchuriki, Utakata, and the 3 Tails. The Hokage nodded, impressed by the young man's foresight. He turned his attention to Naomi, who had yet to contribute to the conversation. And will you be staying here? He asked. Sora was beginning to nod, but she interrupted him, shaking her head. No, actually. I've been thinking that this may be the perfect time for me to take care of something. What do you mean? Sora asked her, clearly not expecting her announcement. My contract, she said with a weak smile, a small amount of her good humor returning. If you're going to be out of the village for a few weeks during this mission, now's as good a time as any to go to the valley. Sora nodded to her in acknowledgement. Hiruzen furrowed his eyebrows. What are you talking about? He asked. We both had summoning contracts before coming here, Sora explained, but they aren't something that we have anymore since we came back to a time before we'd actually signed our contracts. I have some thoughts on how I could get mine back, but Hinata's is another matter. I've decided that the easiest thing to do is to simply go to the source. Unlike Naruto, I don't have a perverted old hermit that runs around with the contracting scroll that I want. I've already told you he wasn't that bad, Sora said, taking the jibe in stride as he rolled his eyes at the woman. She's talking about Jiraiya-sensei, he added for Hokage's benefit. The banter gave Sarutobi a feeling of warmth. When he looked at Naomi before, she just seemed so fragile to him. As if she was struggling just to find the energy to keep going. He got the same impression from Sora as well, that first day the man came to his office. But whenever he began to worry, the Hokage saw them like this, laughing or smiling as if they hadn't spent nearly half of their lives on the battlefield, as if they were still able to believe in the possibility of a brighter future. It was of little surprise in Sora's case. The boy would never let events crush his spirit completely, no matter how horrible they were. And given that Naomi seemed to hold that same fire within her, it seemed to Sarutobi that some of Sora's stubbornness might have rubbed off on his wife. Or perhaps it was simply that she had always stronger than he had given her credit for under the shy exterior of the young girl he knew. Either way, after everything they'd experienced, he was glad that they could still find some happiness in their lives. As long as they had each other, he knew they would both work to keep the other one grounded. However, as the pair put their joking aside, turning their attention back to the Hokage, the room started to take on a more somber air. As for the second thing we wanted to tell you, Naomi began softly. Konoha is going to be attacked during the finals of the Chunin exams. Sarutobi gaped at her, his pipe falling unnoticed from his mouth. What? Was all he could ask, too stunned by the woman's revelation to say anything more. Then his mind caught up and he glared at his guests. His earlier positive thoughts disappeared in a flash of anger as his temper flared. And you couldn't mention this during our first meeting? He yelled. To his credit, Sora didn't appear to be the least bit offended. He only looked away sadly. I hate to tell you this, old man, but after seeing Madara annihilate all 5 of the great villages, this became little more than a footnote for us. Besides, Konoha fared better during this first invasion than it did during the next 2 times. Next 2 times? The Hokage whispered dully. The second time was a couple of years from now by a member of Akatsuki, Sora said with a wave of his hand. He turned the entire village to rubble by himself. Thankfully, after I talked some sense into him, he saw fit to bring everyone back to life. He glanced at the Hokage. Don't ask, it was so complicated that I still don't really get how he did it. Anyway, for the most part that whole situation worked out in the end. As for the third time, he said, expression becoming dark, that was Madara. It was a slaughter. Sarutobi covered his eyes with a hand, shaking his head. I knew things were going to be bad, but how am I supposed to be prepared for them telling me that our village is going to be attacked 3 separate times? He thought. Damn it! He cursed. Sora looked at him sympathetically. It's not that we don't care, it's just that there isn't much we can really do to stop this from happening. If we start to prepare too much, he'll know something is wrong and just attack some other time when don't expect it. Who is this he? Sarutobi asked, sighing heavily. Madara again? Naomi shook her head. It's Orochimaru. Hiruzen wanted to be angry, but at that moment he only felt very old and very tired. Let me guess. He wants revenge? After all these years, he still can't understand that it was his own twisted nature that precluded from becoming Hokage and got him exiled in the first place, he said regretfully. And the worst part is that this is my fault. What a failure of a teacher I am. It's more complicated than just Orochimaru, Sora added. I'm assuming you've heard of the Hidden Sound Village? It's nothing more than a cover for him and his followers. To make matters worse, he'll ally with the Hidden Sand to attack us. The Hokage closed his eyes, gathering his thoughts. It was in situations like these that he had to be strong. He couldn't afford to waste any more time being surprised. What details can you give me? Not much more, I'm afraid, Naomi said. Temari once told me. She stopped herself. Sorry, I'm not sure whether or not you know who that is yet. Temari was the 4th Kazekage's daughter. She once told me that her father plotted with Orochimaru to attack the village. Apparently it had something about economic decline or some other nonsense that shouldn't have been nearly enough justification for an attack to begin with. Anyway, Orochimaru killed him before the invasion even began so he could take his place, then he used the sand to take the brunt of the assault. Anything else? He asked hopefully. Do you know how large of a force they'll bring? Sora shook his head. Not really. After the battle, we never stopped to think of anything like that. Besides, we were young, it's not like they would have told us anyway. We did try and find out more when the group of us started planning for this crazy trip into the past, but none of us knew the specifics and anyone who might have was gone by then. That makes sense, the Hokage said, massaging his temples. We know a little bit about their strategy, though, Naomi clarified. When they'll attack, or at least when they attacked in our time, for instance. We also know that they plan to use a Jinchuriki so they can unleash the Ichibi in the middle of the village. She saw the look on his face. Don't worry, she reassured him. They didn't really have much control over him, so he never actually ended up attacking the village. In the end, Naruto was able to take him and the One-Tails down,